Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Stupid villagers. Why can't they see past their hatred for Kurama and accept me? Asked 6-year-old Naruto aloud and to no one in particular. He was currently walking around in the forest that surrounded Kanehagakure no Sato. He had just barely escaped from an angry mob that had tried to kill him. Again, his black t-shirt was ripped and cut in numerous places, almost to the point where it was barely staying on his small, malnourished body. His white shorts were hardly in any better state. If an outsider were to see him, they would think he had just barely escaped death at the hands of a wild beast, and they wouldn't be too far off. Just forget those stupid villagers, Kit. They're not worth your time. Anyone who would harm a child like that doesn't deserve the right to live. And they call me a demon, came the demonic voice of Naruto's one and only friend and ally. He had met his tenant for the first time after almost dying at the hands of the idiotic villagers. It was then that Kurama had told a 4-year-old Naruto he was hated because of him being sealed inside of him and explaining why he had attacked and why he was chosen to be his new container. At first, Naruto was angry with what his father, the 4th Hokage, had done, but after a while understood why his father had done what he did. I still don't get what my father saw in that hellhole of a village. All they care about is themselves, especially the damn council. That stupid banshee Haruno called for my death almost every day, while that bastard Danzo wanted me to become a weapon for the village. Over the years, Naruto had gotten training from Kurama in the basics of the ninja arts, stealth specifically, and thanks to his natural fox-like nature being enhanced by the presence of the most powerful fox on the planet and his 2 years of pranking and hiding. His skills in stealth and espionage were on par with the Yambu. With this knowledge and skill, Naruto had infiltrated and listened in on more than one council meeting. With the knowledge he had of the village's inner workings and some of the classified intelligence he had, the village would be forced to either kill him or meet his demands if he ever decided to use his knowledge. Especially the knowledge of the reason and secret behind the recent Uchiha massacre. I know Itachi Nizan was ordered to do what he did, and I swear that one day I will find him and help him. Other than Kurama, Itachi was one of the few people to ever treat him like a normal human and not some demon, the only other ones being his adoptive siblings. It was with Itachi's help that Naruto had managed to get to the level of skill he was at, and for that alone, he vowed to one day pay Itachi back for the kindness he had shown him. Well, I guess I better find someplace to set up camp for the night. Hey Kurama, do you want to come out and hunt tonight? Asked Naruto to his tenant. Sure, Kit. I'll find us something good to eat, said Kurama as he prepared himself to be summoned. Biting his thumb, Naruto went through 5 hand signs before slamming his hand on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. In a swirl of fire, a 9-tailed fox about the size of a horse appeared. All right, Kit. I'll be right back with dinner. With that, he sprinted off into the forest away from the village. It was an hour later that he returned to find Naruto sitting in a hollowed-out tree with a small fire going. When Kurama put the boar he killed down, Naruto took out a kunai and began to skin the boar and prepare it for cooking. Not only had Naruto been training in the ninja arts, but he had also been taught how to survive in the wilderness for long periods of time. The frequent attacks by the villagers had made that skill a necessity. So, Kurama, do you think we should go back to the village this time or not? Asked Naruto after he set the boar to cook over the fire. No, I don't think we should go back this time. The old man would just put us back in that rat hole of an apartment, while the villagers that did this would only get a slap on the wrist and be told not to do it again. We're better off never going back there, said Kurama as he started the fire. While he would never come out and say it, he did have a reputation to uphold. He had always thought of Naruto as if he was one of his own pups. To a fox, family is a sacred thing and pups are held in an even higher regard. It was fox law that anyone abusing a child was to be killed on sight. The only reason he hadn't killed off the entire village was for Naruto's sake. It wouldn't do to have him see him when he was like that. Not at this age, at least. You're probably right. So where should we go then? Asked Naruto as he took a piece of the finished boar and began to eat. Shrugging a fox's equivalent of shoulders, Kurama grabbed a piece of the succulent meat with one of his tails and began to reap the spoils of his kill. The two ate in a comfortable silence as they tried to think of places they could go to get away from the village. Naruto was about to voice an idea, but Kurama stopped him with one of his tails. Looking at him confused, Naruto asked mentally, "What is it, Kurama? Did someone find us?" "No, they haven't found us, but there are two shinobi near our position. I can't tell who." "Well, that's interesting. Maybe this could work in our favor," said Kurama as he removed his tail from Naruto's mouth and vanished in a swirl of fire. "All right, kid, let's go greet our visitors." Still slightly confused at what Kurama was up to, Naruto nodded his head and left to intercept his visitors. Two men were walking through the forest near Kanahagakure on their way home from mission. The first one was a dark-skinned young man with white hair that covered up his left eye. He wore the standard Kumo Jounin attire, a white one-strap Jounin vest over a high-collared black shirt that was slightly open at the front. He had black pants and black shinobi sandals. On his back, he carried a cleaver sword and had the kanji 4 water tattooed on his right shoulder and the kanji 4 lightning on his left. This man was Darui, the right-hand man to the 4th Reikage A. The other was also a dark-skinned man, but with a more muscular build. Like Darui, he wore the standard one-strapped white Jounin vest. He had black pants with a standard Kumo Jounin wrist and shin guards and a white scarf around his neck. On his back, he had 7 swords, each with a red-colored grip. He wore sunglasses and had a tattoo of 2 bull horns on his left cheek. He also had the tattoo, 4 iron on his right shoulder that served as the iron armor seal for the 8-tailed ox. This man was Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki of the 8-tailed ox, and brother of the Reikage. The two were just returning from a mission and were leisurely walking through the forest of Fire Country, enjoying the beauty of nature. Bee, who had been inspecting one of his swords for damage, was suddenly stopped by a demonic voice in his head. "Bee, stop. I sense one of my kind's chakra nearby, though I can't tell whose," said the 8-tailed ox, Gyuki. Bee's sudden stop caught the attention of his companion. "Bee, you okay?" "I hope it's nothing dull," said Darui as he walked back to Bee. Not many things could cause Bee to suddenly stop moving so abruptly. Having full control of your bijou tended to bring that kind of self-assurance. "Yeah, I'm fine, Darui. But Gyuki said he sensed another bijou's chakra nearby, and it's not in Konoha," said Bee as he scanned their surroundings for the possible source of the chakra. As soon as he finished, the two heard a rustle from a nearby bush. Each reached for their respective weapons, only to freeze when they saw a blonde-haired boy that was obviously malnourished come out of the bush. The boy couldn't have been older than 6, but what caught their attention were the 6 whiskers like marks on both his cheeks. "Hey kid, are you okay? What are you doing out here?" asked Darui as he kneeled down to be on the same level as the kid, trying not to frighten him. He noticed that the kid's clothing was torn, almost to the point of it being more of a rag instead of a shirt. What the hell happened to this kid? Bee, meanwhile, was staring at the boy while he stared back, judging each other. Nobody moved or spoke for a few minutes, until Naruto broke the silence, turning to Darui. "I'm fine, Shinobi-san. As for why I'm out here, I ran away from my village when a mob of civilians tried to kill me again." At this, both men's faces contorted into looks of rage and disgust. Why would people try to kill an innocent boy? Naruto stood watching the 2 shinobi in front of him. Both were emitting killing intent and were obviously angered for what he told them. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Bee was brought out his thoughts of anger by his demonic tenant. "Bee, the chakra is coming from this boy. He's a Jinchuriki, for which I can't tell. The chakra is just barely being let out. He either has control over the demonic chakra, or his bijou is being very careful and making sure they aren't noticed." Surprised from what his friend said, Bee decided to make sure he was right, no matter how weird his next sentence was going to sound. "Hey kid, this is going to sound strange, but I need you to remove your shirt and call on your chakra if you can." This surprised Darui. He was about to ask why Bee had asked that of the boy, but was cut off by said boy. So it is you. You're like me, said Naruto, looking Bee in the eye. Slightly surprised by the fact that a mere child could speak with such seriousness, he nodded his head and decided to find out what Gyuki couldn't. Yes, I am like you. Our kind is known as Jinchuriki. I hold the eight-tailed ox, and my name is Killer Bee. What's yours? Asked Bee as he walked up to the boy and kneeled down to his level. He didn't know why, but he had a strange feeling that this boy was no mere child, even by Jinchuriki standards. So Kurama was right. Gyuki was nearby. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki. I am the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. Kurama, said the blonde as the two men's eyes widened to the size of a tree. This kid was the son of the fourth Hokage, the yellow flash of a leaf, and Kushina Uzumaki, the red death of a leaf. With his parentage alone, this boy should be treated as royalty in his home village. Yet he was shunned, and people had tried to kill him for the beast he holds. This is going to sound a little weird, but can I come with you back to your village, please? Now the two were even more surprised. The son of the most feared Hokage in the history of Konoha, Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, wanted to come and join Kimobikure. I knew he wasn't an ordinary child, but damn. He's the son of the legendary Yellow Flash and the Red Death. With training, he will be invincible, and I intend on being one of the ones to get him there. Thought while he tried to reboot his brain to a working level. Sure, kid. You can come with us, said Bee as he got over his shock faster than Darui. Nodding his head, Naruto claimed on Bee's shoulder, and they set out at full speed for Lightning Country, with Naruto's squeals of happiness being heard the entire trip. Kumo ga kure no sato. It was a day later that the trio arrived in Kumogakure no Sato. They were on their way to see the rakeage while Naruto kept looking around at his new home. The buildings were different than in his old home, and when people looked at him, they weren't looks of hate and disgust, but kindness and acceptance. When they arrived at the rakeage tower, the guards bowed to Darui and Bee and sent kind smiles to Naruto, who gladly returned them. He had only received this kind of treatment from Kurama, Itachi, and his siblings. When they reached the door to the rakeage office, they didn't even bother knocking and just went straight in. Kind of like what I did with that stupid old man Hokage, thought Naruto while he jumped down from Bee's shoulder and stood before the leader of Kumobikure. Yo bro, mission complete, but we picked up a little hitchhiker on our way back, said Bee while he fought to keep a smirk from crossing his lips. When bro finds out who Naruto really is, it's going to be fucking hilarious. I looked at the blonde before him and gave him a kind smile. Hello there. I'm the rakeage of Kumobikure. What's your name? He asked as he came around his desk and allowed Naruto a better view of him. He was a very muscular man, even more than Bee. He didn't wear a shirt, allowing everyone to see his well-defined chest. He had black pants on with a belt that had a gold plate on the front with the face of a boar carved into it. He had on the traditional white robe of a kage, which served to cover two gauntlets on both of his wrists. I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and before you ask, yes, my father was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage in Yellow Flash. My mother was Kushina Uzumaki. If you will allow it, I would like to live in Kumo and become a shinobi of this village, said Naruto, as A's eyes almost popped out of his head at this revelation. If those two had a kid, he would be a truly fearsome and almost invincible shinobi. Meanwhile, in Bee's head, damn, that was funny. Did you see the look on bro's face? Ha 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 ha. I haven't seen him that surprised since Dad told him he would be the rakeage. Very well, Naruto. I don't see the problem with you joining our village, and we'd be honored to have you as one of our shinobi, said it with a small smile. I have a feeling I may very well have just met my successor. Returning the smile, Naruto walked up to the rakeage and gave him a hug. Slightly surprised, it returned the hug and turned to Bee to tell him where to take Naruto, but he beat him to the punch. Bro, you should know that young Naruto here is a Jinchuriki like me and Yujito. He holds a nine-tailed fox. This, of course, nearly gave the young Kage a heart attack. Not only was the boy he hugging the son of two of the most powerful and feared shinobi to ever come from Konoha, but he was also the Jinchuriki of the most powerful and feared bijou in existence. Now I'm certain of it. I just met my successor, and he is most likely the one who is going to kill me with a heart attack if all these surprises are anything to go by. Alright, B, I want you to start training young Naruto here to control the fox's chakra like you're Yujito. Also take him to the apartment building Yujito lives in. I'm sure they'd both get along very well with each other, said A as he released Naruto from the hug and walked back to his desk and started writing some things down. The entire time all this was going on, Darui was silently watching Naruto, deciding whether or not to act on the feeling he had about the boy. His decision was made for him when his tattoo on his left shoulder began to burn a little. So he is the one who can harness the true power of the Black Lightning. Hey boss, I would like to train Naruto as well, he said in an oddly serious voice that didn't suit his laid-back attitude. Hearing the tone in his right-hand man's voice, I knew this was something serious. Why would that be Darui? And what would you train him in? Asked A. I would train him in what the third Raikage trained me in, the secret to the Black Lightning technique. Of all the answers A and B were expecting, this was definitely not one of them. The Black Lightning was one of the most powerful techniques Kumo had. As for why, because my tattoo reacted to him. When the third gave me this tattoo, he built in a seal that would react in the presence of the one person who was capable of harnessing the true power of the Black Lightning. Also, the third left me a scroll to give to my successor, a token of the one who first wielded the Black Lightning. This surprised both muscled men. The third, their father had left behind a way to find a true successor to his unique technique. Very well, Darui. You will help train young Naruto in the secrets of the Black Lightning, while B will train the boy to control his bijou. But for now, B take Naruto to the academy. Today was the first day of class, and I'm sure he would like to start on his road to becoming a shinobi. Am I right, Naruto? Said A as he turned to the little blonde, only to find him missing with a small dust cloud in his place. Looking back towards the two jounin, he noticed he was missing one. B. Darui, where the hell did B and Naruto go? He asked, completely confused. Darui, who had been staring at the door with wide eyes, was brought out of his stupor by the sound of his boss's voice. Look out your window was all he said. Even more confused, he looked out the window, only to fall out of his chair laughing his ass off. There was Naruto running in the direction of the academy while pulling B by the arm, who appeared to be little more than a rag doll being thrown this way, and that by a 6-year-old boy. I was wrong. Naruto won't be the death of me cause of a heart attack he caused. He'll kill me from lack of oxygen with how hard I'm laughing. When they finally reached the academy, Naruto was smiling like a goofball, while B was covered in bruises for being used as an entrail for the boy and mumbling something about energetic blondes being the death of me. They entered the building and headed for the classroom that it had given B before Naruto had literally dragged him halfway across Kumo to get here. When they reached the correct classroom, B knocked on the door and waited for the teacher to respond. With a quick enter, the two walked in, and the class and teacher went wide-eyed at the sight of the guardian of Cloud walking into their class with a young blonde by his side. B-sama, what can I do for you? Asked the slightly odd Chunin. I'm just here to drop off Naruto. He just joined a village and wants to be a shinobi. I trust you'll treat him like all the others, said B as he handed the teacher the papers he managed to grab before Naruto got a hold of him. The teacher's eyes widened when he read Naruto's name, and almost died of a heart attack when he saw who his parents were. Looking to B for confirmation, the teacher saw him nod, and he almost passed out from the revelation. If everyone reacts this way to Naruto's identity, then we'll lose over half of our shinobi force thanks to heart attacks, thought B while he looked from the still, awestruck Chunin to Naruto, who was studying his new sensei. He wore the standard Kumo Chunin attire, one-strapped white flak jacket, black pants along with a black t-shirt. He also wore the standard wrist and shin guards of Kumo Bikure and was fairly muscled. Like most people he'd seen in Kumo, he was dark-skinned and had his long black hair pulled into a shoulder-length ponytail. Yes, well Naruto, I'm Bokudai Yaharo, and I'll be your sensei for the time you're at the academy. Now, why don't you introduce yourself to the rest of the class, said Bokudai, as he gestured towards the class. Nodding his head, Naruto walked to the front of the class. Hey, my name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I am originally from Kanahagakure, but I ran away because I was hated. When he was finished, B stepped up and put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Turning to one of his new senseis, Naruto saw that he had a serious face on. Naruto, after you're dismissed, you'll be starting your training with me to control him, all right? Yujito, I want you to show him where we normally train, all right? He'll be joining us. Be finished looking over towards a blonde-haired girl who had her hair in a braid. Wait, Uncle B, do you mean he's like us? Asked Yujito as she rose from her seat with a look of shock on her face. B was about to answer the shocked girl when another voice cut him off. Why would you think someone as cute as this new guy would be like you, freak? You're just a monster cat, like the one you hold, said another random girl, as most of the class started agreeing. Yujito seemed hurt by all of this and looked ready to cry, before a girl with dark skin and vibrant red hair went to comfort her. Naruto was surprised. He hadn't mentioned that there was another Jinchuriki his age, but his surprise was soon replaced with anger when he heard what the other girl said about her. No, I won't let another person suffer through the same thing I had to. Walking up the steps towards the back of the class, everyone watched as he approached Yujito. Many thought he was going to do something to hurt her and laugh at her. What happened next none of them saw coming. Are you okay, Yujito? He asked once he reached her. She looked into his eyes, trying to find any deception in them, but what she saw brought a tear to her eye. He had the same eyes as her, ones that knew pain, what it was like to be rejected, feared and hated by those who didn't understand what they were. The tear fell down her cheek when he embraced her and tried to comfort her. Returning the hug, Yujito could do little other than sigh in content. She didn't know what it was, but there was something about this new guy that just made her want to stay with him for the rest of her life. Not believing what she was seeing, the same girl who made fun of Yujito earlier spoke in an almost hysteric voice. What? You can't honestly like her. She a monster. She has the two-tailed monster cat sealed in her. She would have continued, but suddenly the entire classroom was filled with unimaginable amounts of killing intent. Bokudai was scarred. The thickness of the killing intent he was feeling was incredible and terrifying at the same time. He looked over at B thinking the killing intent was coming from him, but was surprised when he was wearing a smirk and wasn't radiating anything. Looking over towards his new student, Bokudai nearly had a heart attack when he realized all of this killing intent was coming from him. Never insult Yujito in my presence. She and I are the same. She bears a burden the same as I do. So if you insult her, you are insulting not only me, but Killer Bee as well, since he also carries a bijou, said Naruto, as he gave his voice a demonic edge and turned to face the scarred girl. He smirked as he heard her, and most of the class gasps of shock. He knew it was his eyes that had scared them. Gone were the warm sapphires that had been so friendly and kind, replaced with two blood-red glowing orbs with vertical slits for the pupils. Deciding to drive his point home, Naruto looked over at B and nodded, letting him know everything was under control. After B nodded in return, Naruto began admitting some of Kurama's chakra that formed his chakra cloak in the shape of a fox with one tail. She may hold the two-tail and B may hold the eight-tail, but my burden is the hardest to bear, for I hold the nine-tailed fox inside me. When he finished speaking, his cloak receded and his features returned to normal. Giving his trademark fox grin, he turned to B, who was smirking as well. Well, I guess I'll catch you later, B. Don't worry. I'll watch out for Yujito and make sure that anyone who tries to insult her will pay dearly. All right, Naruto. Yujito, make sure you show Naruto where we train every day. I'll catch you two lovebirds later. See ya. With that, B walked out of the room, leaving behind a stunned class, a smirking Naruto, a blushing Yujito, and a smiling teacher. It seems these next few years won't be as boring as I thought. Yujito was also in thought as she stared at the blonde before her. He carried a burden that was even greater than hers, yet he could still be happy and carefree. Her thoughts were interrupted, however, by the voice of her own tenant, one seriously perverted cat known as Matatabi. Kyukun, it's him, it's really him. Kitten, you need to drag that boy to your apartment. Lock the door and not let him get any sleep for a month. Mata, knock it off, I will not drag him to my apartment. And you know we can't do that, we're barely 6 for God's sake. Kitten, please see, I need my Kyukun, and I need him now. T.O. bad. You'll have T.O. wait. With that, Yujito cut the connection to her tenant, so she didn't have to listen to her rant about being denied her Kyukun time. All right, class. Well, let's begin, shall we? Naruto, why don't you take a seat next to Yujito so we can begin? With that, Naruto started on the road to his new life as a ninja of Kumo. 6 years later, Naruto sat beside Yujito, waiting for the rest of the class to arrive and to receive their team placements. Over the years, Naruto had changed greatly and become one of the most feared people in his class, with Yujito a close second. The reason the two were so feared was because of their habit of showing their chakra cloak when someone pissed them off. After Naruto had defended Yujito during the first day of class, he was welcomed with open arms into Yujito's little circle of friends. The first one was Samui. She was a blonde like the two of them, though hers was straight and reached her shoulders. She wore the standard kunoichi attire for Kumo, with a short sword strapped horizontally to the back of her hip. Unlike most girls in their class, Samui was well endowed in the chest, already having a nice C-cup, which caused her to have constant back pains. Another one was the redhead he saw comfort Yujito on the first day. Karui was a dark-skinned girl with yellow eyes. She wore the standard attire for a Kumo kunoichi like Samui, but she had a katana sword strapped to her back. She also wore her new headband like a bandana. The last of their little circle of friends was a boy named Omoi. He was dark-skinned like most people in Kumo. He had short white spiky hair and wore the standard shinobi garb of Kumo and carried a katana on his back like Karui. But he wore his headband in a regular fashion. A little quirk about Omoi was that he always had a sucker in his mouth and was overthinking things constantly, which caused for Karui to beat him up every now and then. Naruto and Yujito were the odds ones out of the group, opting to wear some more unique clothes than just the classic shinobi and kunoichi outfits of their village. Yujito wore a short-sleeved purple and black shirt that showed off her developing figure nicely, with black pants that had a purple cloud pattern on them. She also had on purple fingerless gloves with beads wrapped around her left hand. She had her hair in a long braid, and her new headband was tied around her forehead. Naruto now wore a pair of baggy black pants with a red stripe going up either side them, along with a black sleeveless shirt with a red nine-tailed fox on the back that showed his muscled arms. His forearms were both wrapped in black medical tape, and on his right shoulder was a tattoo of the kanji for lightning, much like his sensei Darui's. He had a ninjato sword strapped to his back that had the head of black fox as the guard, with his headband tied around his left bicep. Over the years he spent training with his senseis, he had come a long way, though he was only slightly stronger than a rookie chunin without Kurama's chakra and influence. Thanks to the training he got from Bee, he was able to control up to 3 of Kurama's tails without going berserk. Though he and Kurama were on good terms, and their chakras didn't fight one another, the potency of the demonic chakra alone was enough to make him go berserk. His training with Darui had also been very productive. He now knew about 8 or so lightning-style jutsu, and he could use 5 of them with a black lightning. He had learned early on that the black lightning wasn't a Kekiai Genkai or anything similar to it. It was just a much more potent form of lightning itself. Instead of using high-speed electrical currents that formed regular lightning, to use the black lightning, one had to use their chakra to slow down the electrical currents, which allowed higher concentration of electrical energy to be delivered at once, and also gave the lightning its dark coloring. However, for one to be able to use this ability, one had to have an insanely high affinity for lightning-style chakra. He also knew, though, that there were jutsu that could only be used with the black lightning, and he wouldn't learn any of those until he made Chunin. Just as the last students were sitting down their sensei, Bokudai walked into the room with a clipboard in hand. Turning to the class, Bokudai gave them a proud smile and congratulated them one more time on graduating before he started reading off the teams. Naruto tuned most of them out until he heard his name called. Team 20 will be an assault and assassination team. Naruto Namikaze, Yujito ni, and Karui. Your sensei will be Darui. You will meet him at Training Ground 20. Team 21 will be a rescue and support team. Samui, Omoi, and Samaki, your sensei, will be Sure. Meet him at Training Ground 21. After the rest of the teams were assigned, everyone started leaving with their teams to meet with their new senseis. When Naruto and his team arrived at the training ground, they found Darui sitting in the middle of it looking bored out of his mind. "Hey, Darui-sensei, hope things aren't too dull for you," said Naruto as they approached their new/old sensei. "With you three as a team, I don't think things will ever be dull for me for a long time to come," said Darui as he gave his students a smile, which was returned. "Well, why don't we introduce ourselves, even though I doubt any of us need one. My name is Darui, and I will be your sensei from now on. I like relaxing and doing missions with my partner, Sure. I dislike those who would bring harm to Kumo. My hobbies are helping boss out whenever he needs it, and my dream is to protect the boss with my life." When he finished, Darui pointed towards Naruto to go next. "I'm Naruto Namikaze. I like training and my friends. I dislike anyone who insults my friends and the villagers of Kanagakure, and my hobbies are training to use my black lightning and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to one day become the Raikage and lead Kumo to glory, and to one day start a family with the girl I love," said Naruto with much conviction in his voice. He glanced at Yujito when he said the last part. This didn't go unnoticed by Darui or Karui. "Next, our other blonde friend," said Darui with a knowing smirk directed at Naruto, who blushed a little at the smirk. "My name is Yujito ni. I like my friends. I dislike those that can't accept me for me, and my hobbies are training and hanging out with my friends. My dream is to become the right-hand person to the Raikage and to start a family with the man I love," said Yujito, as she glanced at Naruto, which again did not go unnoticed by their sensei and teammate. Nodding, Darui gestured toward Karui to round them off. "I'm Karui. I like training to use my sword and beating the crap out of Omoi. I dislike when Omoi starts overthinking things. My hobbies are training to use my sword, and my dream is to become a well-respected kunoichi of Kumo," said Karui. "All right, that's it for today. Meet me here tomorrow morning at 8 for our first mission and some training," said Darui as he got up and left to who knows where. A week later. For the past week, Team 20 had trained with Darui in the mornings and did missions in the afternoon. It was now Saturday, and Team 20 was once again on another D-rank mission. Their mission was to capture the demon dog, Ukami, the lightning daimyo's wife's dog. They had chased the thing all over the village and were currently trying to surround it and capture it. "Hothead here. I'm in position, and Naruto, I'm going to kill you," said Karui over the headset. "Fiery cat in position. I still say we should roast the thing," said Yujito. "Black fox in position. I swear if that thing attacks me again, I'm letting Yujito-chan fry it," said Naruto as he glared at the dog from his hiding place. It appeared to be any regular golden retriever, but if you asked any Genin team that had the misfortune of catching it, they would tell you that it was the 10th bijou in disguise. "No killing the target, team. On my mark, capture the target." 3, 2, 1, now," said Darui as the 3 Genin launched from their hiding places and tackled the dog. The second they grabbed it, it started clawing and biting at all of them. "Oh, that's it. Karui put this stupid mud in a Jinjutsu," screamed Naruto as he tried to hold back the rapid animal. It wasn't a second later that the thing stopped attacking and fell asleep thanks to the Jinjutsu. "Okay, that is the last time we accept this mission. Next time we get it, I'm zapping that dumb dog with my black lightning, said Naruto, as they made their way back to the Rakich's office to give their report and hand over the demon dog to its owner, who would probably crush the life out of the thing. They were right. The first second the daimyo's wife had her dog back, she started squeezing the life out of it. It's getting what it deserves, was the general thought process of the entire team. Well done, Team 20. Now for your next mission, you will be doing your first C rank, said the Rakich. This caught the team's attention since they were eager to get a better mission. Your mission is to eliminate some bandits that have been terrorizing some villages near the Lightning Earth country border. Though they haven't attacked any villages outright, they have made threats, and I want them taken care of before anything can happen. This scroll will lead you to their position. When you arrive, don't let any of them escape. Kill them all and recover anything that could be of value to the village. I handed Darui the mission scroll for the more in-depth details before turning to Team 20 to judge their reactions. In truth, he didn't want to send them on this mission that would force them to kill at such an age, but he had no choice. Naruto was staring off into space, trying to come to terms with what he would be doing soon. He knew that as a ninja, he would have to eventually kill people, but he didn't think it would be this early on. Coming back to reality, he looked at his teammates and was suddenly reminded of why he had originally wanted to become a shinobi, to protect those precious to him. That was his reason for fighting, and that would be his reason for killing, to remove anyone who might bring harm to the ones he held dear to him. Yujito was looking at the floor, trying to decide if she could honestly go through with the acts she would have to commit. She knew she would kill eventually. It was part of the life of a kunoichi, and it was the basic essence of survival. Kill or be killed, that was it, plain and simple. She was a survivor. By nature, as was the nature of all Jinchuriki, she would survive not only for herself, but for Naruto. She vowed to herself to always be by his side, and to do that she needed to survive. Karui wasn't taking the news of their new mission as bad as her teammates. Being from a clan of swordsmen, she had been forced to undergo a basic test to see if she had what it took to wield and learn the art of the sword. When it comes to skills with a sword, there was no room for error or hesitance. The test had made her raise a rabbit for a month, and at the end of it, she was ordered to kill it with her katana. This was the test she had to pass to even be allowed to wield a blade. She wouldn't like it, but she would go through with it. Darui sent a concerned glance to his team. He knew that for each of them, that this would be their first time killing another human being. He was about to request that his team take on a different mission until he saw the fire and determination return to their eyes. He smiled at this. He knew his team wouldn't like having to kill, but they would do it if it meant protecting each other. When they weren't training, he would often watch as his team hung out with their friends, and he noticed how protective they all were of each other. He remembered on one such occasion when an older civilian boy had tried to come onto Yujito, only to be shot down. He didn't like that so much and had tried to grab Yujito to have his way with her. He had about jumped from his position on Stop the Boy, but Naruto and the others had beaten him to the punch. The boy had to spend about a year in the hospital and was still spending his time there. It was rumored that even though he would recover from the beating itself, he would not be touching anybody ever again. "All right, boss. We'll head out within the hour to begin our mission," said Darui before turning to his team. "Meet at the West Gate in 30 minutes and prepare for an all-out fight when we reach our target." The three genin nodded before heading towards their respective homes to prepare for the mission. West Gate, 30 minutes later. Darui stood waiting for his team to show up. He was currently going over the instructions on the mission scroll, trying to find the fastest way to their target. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard 3 people land in front of him. Looking up revealed it to be his team, each of them combat ready. "All right, team, let's get moving before things get too dull." With that said, Darui launched himself down the mountain with his genin quickly following. They continued down until they cleared the cloud bank and saw the small forest that surrounded the base of the mountains their village was built on. Once they were close enough to the forest, they jumped from the mountain into the treetops and began moving through the forest, heading in the direction of the bandits' camp. It was a few hours after they cleared the forest and made it to a stone quarry that resembled the border of Earth Country. At the center of the quarry, they spotted the bandit camp and noticed that many of the bandits were sitting around doing whatever to keep them from getting bored. Okay, team, it seems that there are about 40 or so bandits in all. We'll each take a different part of the camp. Naruto, you take the north, Yujito the east, Karui, you take the south, and I'll take the west. Try and kill them as quickly and as silently as possible. Avoid any actual battle as best you can. Take your positions and wait for my signal to move, said Darui as he vanished from his spot along with Naruto and Karui, each heading to their respective parts of the camp, leaving Yujito to the east side of the camp. It took about 5 minutes for everyone to get into position around the camp, each waiting anxiously for the signal to attack. They didn't have to wait long, for as soon as the last fire in the camp went out, Darui gave the signal and they made their way into the camp. Karui rushed into the camp with her katana drawn and at the ready. Her part of the camp held most of the tents, so her targets were all asleep, except for the two that were about to go to sleep before they lost their heads. Sheathing her katana and taking out some kunai, she made her way silently into each of the tents, slitting the throats of any bandits she found. Yujito moved with the grace and speed of a cat as she jumped from her spot among some stones. She landed on a table where about 5 bandits were sitting around playing poker in the moonlight. With kunai in hand, she spun around, slitting all of their throats before they had time to make her appearance known. Unfortunately, one of the bandits that was passing by saw the whole thing and called her help as he charged her. About 4 more bandits came running towards her with katanas and knives drawn and ready to strike her. Jumping over the swing of the first bandit, she delivered a quick kick to his head, disorienting him and giving her enough time to stab her kunai into his neck. Turning to the other approaching bandits, she let loose 8 shuriken before placing all of them under a jinjutsu Karui had taught her. It disoriented the target to the point that they couldn't tell which way was up or down. Unfortunately, the jinjutsu would only last about 5 seconds, but that was all she needed as her shuriken met their marks and the corpses fell to the ground. Naruto launched a handful of kunai when the signal came, effectively killing 5 bandits in the process. Moving into the camp, he drew his ninjato to block the strike of one of the bandits who managed to avoid the kunai. Pushing him back, Naruto took advantage of his opponent's loss of balance and quickly let loose a shuriken that embedded itself in the man's neck. Charging the remaining 4 bandits in his part of the camp, Naruto made quick work of them with some well-placed kenjutsu strikes. Seeing no more bandits in his part of the camp, he made his way into the heart of the camp to see if his team mates needed some help. Darui didn't take any chances. As soon as he gave his team the signal to attack, he formed some lightning clones and moving as one. They each killed a bandit with their cleaver swords. Releasing his jutsu, Darui made his way deeper to meet up with his team and to kill any remaining bandits. When he arrived at the middle of the camp, he wasn't surprised to see the rest of his team arriving at the same time. "Well done, team. You've just completed your first C-rank mission," said Darui once they were all together. "Now all we need to do before we return to the village is ransack this place for anything of value." Nodding, they all split up to cover a different part of the camp, agreeing to meet up back in the center once they were done. With Naruto, "Man, I knew bandits were unorganized, but this is fucking ridiculous," thought Naruto as he continued to search the extremely messy weapon storage. "I've been searching in here for almost 20 minutes, and I haven't even made it halfway through this place." As he continued to push his way through the piles of poorly cared for weapons, something in the corner of the room caught his eye. Moving over to check what it was, he found a medium-sized wooden chest with slightly rusted metal accessories. However, it was what was drawn onto the chest that had his full attention, as well as causing his eyes to grow to the size of saucers. There on the top of the chest was the famed and feared red swirl of the Uzumaki clan. This belonged to my clan? How in the 7 levels of hell did some stupid bandits get their hands on something like this? Thought Naruto with barely contained rage. Looking over the chest, he found what he knew was a blood seal carved into the center of the swirl. Biting his thumb, he smeared some of his blood onto the seal, hearing a soft click as he did so. Lifting the lid as if it were made of glass, Naruto felt his breath hitch when he saw 6 scrolls inside of the chest. The first scroll was about 2.5 feet long with a black body with silver edges. Drawn all over the body of the scroll were numerous seals, all linked to another blood seal in the center of the scroll. The other 5 scrolls were all one solid color and were about a foot in length. Unlike the large scroll, they all had seals holding them closed. One thing Naruto noticed was different about the smaller scrolls was that each of them had something written on it. A dark blue scroll had Suijin written in kanji. Next to it was a dark green scroll with the kanji for Fujin. The third scroll was a blood red color with the kanji for Kijijin. A brown scroll with the kanji for Chijin sat next to it. And the last scroll was a shade of yellow that seemed to match his own hair with the kanji Raijin on it. Looking away from the scrolls at the sound of something falling nearby brought Naruto's attention to an envelope attached to the inside of the lid. Opening the envelope revealed a letter written in clean, crisp handwriting. To the Uzumaki that finds this. First off, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mito Uzumaki Senju, wife of Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage of Konohage Court no Sato. While this may seem difficult to believe, but if you truly are an Uzumaki, then I am your distant grandmother. If you're not already aware of your Uzumaki heritage, allow me to give you a brief history of our clan. As I'm sure you already know, the shinobi world was created by a man known as the Sage of the Six Paths. Many have forgotten, but those who haven't believe that the sage only had 2 sons, the elder which received his father's eyes and would go on to found the Uchiha clan, and the younger which received his father's body and would go on to found the Senju clan. This is only a half-truth, as unlike what is believed, the sage had a 3rd son, where the eldest son received his father's eyes, and the middle son received his father's body. The youngest son received something of even more value than his 2 brothers, his father's mind. With the knowledge the youngest received from his father, he was able to help his father perform a task that would forever change the ninja world, the birth of the Bijou. The sage, when he was in his prime, faced a great evil known as the Jubi. He managed to defeat the great beast by sealing it inside of himself, becoming the first Jinchuriki. The sage knew that with his death the Jubi would be released upon the world, and even if his sons were to all fight as one, they would still be defeated. So he called on his youngest to help him split the Jubi's power into multiple pieces. They, however, could not just leave the power without a host to contain it, so they took 9 freshly born animals and sealed the power into their bodies, giving birth to the Bijou as the world knows them today. It was this son that would go on to found our clan, the Uzumaki. However, as time passed, our clan became more and more feared for our vast knowledge in any and all shinobi arts. It was this fear that led to multiple attacks on our home village of Yuzushiobikure. The attacks on our village seemed endless. So the head of our clan at the time decided to ensure that even if Yuzushiobikure fell, the knowledge of our clan would be out of reach to anyone not of our blood. To this end, a seal was created that was inscribed directly into the DNA of all Uzumaki and would be passed down to our descendants. The seal prevents anyone, even other Uzumakis, from reading or entering our minds and immediately destroys our chakra system once we die. While the seal prevented knowledge from being taken from our minds and bodies, it did not protect the knowledge our clan scrolls carried. To prevent this knowledge from being used against our clan, a multi-layered defense was placed on all of our clan scrolls. Blood seals were placed on all of the scrolls. The knowledge written in them was written in a code only an Uzumaki would be able to read thanks to a similar seal placed in our clan's eyes. And lastly, all of the scrolls were sealed into chests like the one you found this letter in, and those chests were sealed into a stronghold that was entrusted to and hidden by the Namikaze clan. Shortly after this, however, the fears of the clan came to pass, the fall of Yuzushiobikure. With the destruction of our village, the surviving Uzumaki scattered to the 4 winds, some becoming civilians, while others continued on as shinobi. I myself continued my life as a kunoichi and eventually married Hashirama Senju, the head of the Senju clan. Once Hashirama took the title of Hokage after he founded the village alongside Madara Uchiha, I began to search for the other surviving Uzumaki to bring then to our new village. What I discovered, however, was not what I was hoping for. Almost all of our clan were hunted down and killed, and only one other Uzumaki had survived. I brought the young boy to the village, and since I could not have children of my own, I adopted him and raised him as my own. The chest before you is not sealed with the others because it holds the only key to unlocking the vault that holds the others. The black scroll contains the beginnings of the Uzumaki clan's knowledge of sealing. Also contained in this scroll is the summoning contract for the Uzumaki clan, the Foxes. This summoning contract is the key to the vault, for only with the chakra of the nine-tailed fox himself will you be able to unlock the vault. The 5 smaller scrolls contain the knowledge and the hidden locations of the Uzumaki clan's greatest weapons, the 5 elemental swords. These swords contain the harnessed energy of the 5 main elements and have been blessed by the very gods they are named after. It was with these swords that the shinobi of Yasushi Obikure had managed to defeat the multiple attempts to destroy our village. But like our knowledge, we feared what would happen should they fall into the wrong hands. So they were scattered around the continent, each hidden and awaiting the day they are needed once more. I must go now. My time on this earth is at an end. Know that I will be watching over you, along with the rest of our clan. I only ask that you use this knowledge to bring honor back to the Uzumaki and to strike down those who would bring darkness to this world. Good luck, young Uzumaki, and remember to always follow your heart. Mito Uzumaki. Naruto was stunned. His clan was a direct descendant from the youngest son of the sage of the 6 paths. Not only that, but they possessed knowledge passed down from the sage himself. Despite all of these revelations, there were a few things he needed answers to, and he knew just the fox to get them from. Hey Kurama, were you aware of this? Some of it, yes. I remember my birth. I was born premature and most likely wouldn't survive a week. That was when the sage and his son came and took me away. After they sealed my power into my body, I swore to always stand by the youngest son and his family. However, I knew I couldn't stay in the human world as I was. So I found and challenged the leader of the fox summon for the right to lead the clan. I won and presented the fox summoning contract to the youngest son. You see, there are 2 contracts for every summoning animal clan. One for the humans and one for the clans themselves. The one I had you sign all those years ago was the brother to the scroll contained in the scroll before you. Also, I remember being summoned at one point by the head of your clan and asked to focus some of my chakra into a seal they designed. I never knew what it was for, but I guess we do now, said Kurama. Through their mental link, nodding and understanding, Naruto closed the lid of the chest hearing it. Blood seal reactivating before taking out a pre-made sealing scroll and sealing the chest away for easier transport. Making sure there was nothing else that could be of value to his village, he left and started making his way back to the center of the camp where his team was waiting. With Team 20 same time. What's taking him so long? Asked Karui as she inspected her katana for any defects. It had been about 20 minutes, and they had each already gone through their part of the camp and sealed away anything of value. I don't know, Karui, but remember Naruto had the largest part of the camp to search, so it might take a little longer, said Darui as he leaned against one of the larger rocks in the camp. True, but still it shouldn't be taking him this long to search for anything that might be valuable, said Yujito, as she kept glancing in the direction that Naruto had left. Just as she was about to go and look for him, she saw a familiar head of blonde hair coming towards them. Looks like he finished, she said, catching the attention of her sensei and teammate. They looked to see Naruto walking towards them, looking off into space, a habit of his when he was deep in thought. Hey Naruto, did you find anything? Asked Darui, only for Naruto to continue looking off into space. This set off warning bells inside everyone's heads. When Naruto got into a state like this, only the 3 of them were able to get him out of it. For him to completely ignore Darui said that something happened that could have drastic and far-reaching consequences. Naruto, what happened? What did you find? Darui tried again to reach his student. It seemed to work when they noticed his eyes returning from their slightly glazed state. Huh. What did you say, Sensei? Asked Naruto, still a little distracted from the earlier revelations. I asked if something happened to you. Did you find something that caused this state you're in? Asked Darui, concerned for his student, lacing his voice. Looking at his teammates, Naruto found that they looked just as worried for him, if not more. Letting a small smile grace his lips, Naruto closed his eyes and took a few breaths before looking into the faces of his concerned team. I found something very interesting, something that will forever change our village. I found a chest containing scrolls with the Uzumaki clan's unique art of sealing jutsu, and I plan on learning everything the scrolls have to offer, said Naruto, shocking the rest of his team. If what he said was true, then the possibilities were almost endless because no one outside of the Uzumaki clan could understand and perform their unique style of sealing and jutsu. Guys, hey, anyone in there? Shaking off the rest of their shock, the rest of Team 20 nodded in understanding and sent a smile to Naruto. Returning the smile, Naruto started off in the direction of their village with his team following. Don't worry, everybody. I swear on my life that I will bring honor back to our clan, and I will destroy those that would seek to stop me. Kumo no Sato, 3 hours later. Hey boss, mission to eliminate some bandits completed, said Darui as he and his team walked into the Rakich's office. Looking up from his paperwork, it was surprised to see that the genin of Team 20 didn't seem even a little bit fazed that they had just killed other human beings. This team will go far, thought A before addressing Darui. Excellent work, Team 20. Your pay for the mission will be transferred into your accounts later today. Now, before any of you get any ideas of resting or relaxing, I have another mission for you. Of all the responses it was expecting, complaining, whining, or shouting, he was not expecting the one he got. Sure, as long as it's another C rank and not some useless D rank, said Naruto with a shrug. I'll look the other two members of Team 20 and noticed they agreed with Naruto. Shaking off his shock at a genin team that didn't mind doing back-to-back missions, he handed Darui the mission scroll thinking, they will go far, farther than any of us expect them to. Team 20, your next mission is a protection one. You are to go to Wave Country and rendezvous with a man named Tazuna. He is currently building a bridge that will connect Wave to the mainland. Your mission is to guard him while he finishes the bridge. Nodding in understanding, Darui addressed his students with a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. All right, team. I doubt you need anything else for this mission, so meet at the South Gate in 10 minutes and be prepared for a run. South Gate. Team 20 was heading out through the South Gate at a speed that most shunins would have trouble following. They continued like this for a few hours until they reached a port where they could get a boat that would take them to Wave Country. Deciding to take advantage of the long boat ride, Darui took out 3 pieces of chakra paper and handed them to his team. Okay, team, we're going to test what your elemental affinities are before we get to Wave, because I plan on teaching each of you at least one new jutsu for this mission, Darui said as he handed them the chakra paper. This chakra paper will let us know what your affinity is. Yujito, why don't you go first? Just channel some of your chakra into the paper. Yujito nodded and channeled some of her chakra into the paper. When the chakra reached the paper, it started to crumple up and then burst into flames. 2 affinities right from the start. Strange, but not unheard of. So it looks like you have fire and lightning affinities. I don't know many fire jutsu, but I'll help you with the ones I do know, and I'm sure I could talk Dodai into helping with fire jutsu. All right, Karui, you next. Channeling chakra into her paper, Karui watched as it crumpled like Yujito's, but instead of bursting into flames, hers got damp. Another 2 affinities from the start. Man, I was right when I said this team wouldn't be dull. You have water and lightning affinities, the same as mine good. All right, Naruto, you're up. Naruto channeled chakra into his paper, and Darui almost had a heart attack from the results. Naruto's paper split into 3 pieces with one bursting into flames. Another crumpling up to the point it was almost gone, and the last one turning into dirt. FF4 affinities. That shouldn't be possible. It's unheard of. Damn Naruto. I knew you would be surprising, but not enough to almost give me a heart attack, said Darui as he held his hand over his heart for emphasis. Sorry, Darui-sensei. Didn't mean to give you a heart attack, said Naruto as he smirked at his sensei. Yujito and Karui were smirking as well, with Yujito giving Naruto glances every now and then. Hey kid, before your sensei asks, me being inside you had nothing to do with your affinities. They're all you. Though with my presence, they will be a little more potent than normal, said Kurama from inside Naruto's head. Just like Kurama predicted, Naruto noticed his sensei about to ask a question. Before you ask sensei, no, Kurama didn't have any influence on my affinities. They're all natural, though they will be more potent with his presence. This caused Darui to sigh. His students are going to be strong, that was a definite, but until then, they're going to be everything but dull. We're almost a wave, a couple more minutes, and you should be able to see the shoreline, said the boat owner as he steered the boat toward a tunnel opening in the distance. When they exited the tunnel, they were met with the sight of a starving village. Houses and buildings were in ruins, stores had barely anything in stock to sell, and people were living on the streets with rags for clothes. Man, the mission file said the village was in bad shape, but I didn't think this bad, said Karui as she looked around the village with sorrow-filled eyes. Yeah, Wave has been like this ever since Gato arrived and started draining the village of everything. That's why Tazuna-san is building the bridge to help connect Wave to the mainland so that they have another way to get trade and ship goods in and out, said the boatman as he turned his boat around and started to head back to the mainland once the shinobi got off. All right, team. According to the file, the client lived a little ways north of the village itself. We'll head there and meet up with him. Do you each remember the description we were given? Everyone nodded, and they started making their way toward their client's house. It was a little while later, when they were nearing Tazuna's home, that they heard the sounds of battle. Once they got closer, they decided to observe from the shadows. They stopped in a tree about 30 yards away and took in everyone present. The first one they noticed was an older man wearing a brown shirt and tan pants with a straw hat on. He had small glasses resting on his nose and a gray goatee and traveling pack on his back. He matched the description of their client, Tazuna, to a T. That's definitely the man who sent the mission request. But who are the shinobi with him? Asked Darui aloud as he and his team looked over the rest of the people present. It was obviously a Genin team, judging from their age. The first one was a boy about Naruto's height. He had black hair that looked like a duck's ass in the back. His onyx black eyes were watching the battle that was taking place intently. He had on a blue high-collar shirt that had what appeared to be a red and white fan on the back with white shorts. On his right thigh was his shuriken holster, and he had a pack on the back of his right hip along with white arm warmers. What caught their attention, though, was the headband he had on. It was the symbol of Konoha. Oh shit, Konoha, this complicates things. I just hope Naruto will be alright, thought Darui as he looked at his successor. His teammates must have had similar thoughts because Karui put her hand on his shoulder for support, while Yujito moved and wrapped her arm around him and laid her head on his shoulder, hoping to keep him calm. The second Genin was a Kunoichi, but even from her appearance, they could tell she was weak. She had long pink hair and had her headband tied on top of her head, keeping her hair back. She wore a red short-sleeved dress that went down to her knees and open on the sides to allow mobility. Underneath, she wore black skin-tight shorts and had her shuriken holster on her right thigh. The last member of the team was another Kunoichi, and like the first, she looked weak. She had long blonde hair that was up in a ponytail that reached her waist. She wore a two-piece purple outfit with bandages wrapped around her thighs and midsection. She had arm warmers on and had her shuriken holster on her right thigh like her teammates. She wore her headband like a belt around her midsection. She was currently shaking while she watched the battle that was unfolding. Her pink-haired friend wasn't doing any better. The Jounin that was currently engaged in the fight wore the standard Jounin attire for Konohagakure. He had a mask that covered most of his face except for his eyes. His headband was on his forehead, and his right eye was currently closed, while his left eye, which was blood red with 3 tomo surrounding the pupil, was open and watching his opponent. The man he was fighting had blue pinstripe pants on. He didn't have a shirt on, only a holster for the Zanbato he was currently fighting with. He had bandages wrapped around his face that covered everything from his nose down to his neck. His headband was turned on the side of his head, and the symbol for Kirigakure with a slash through it. You have got to be kidding me. Zabuza Momochi, the Demon of the Mist, and Sharingan Kakashi. This just went from C rank to freaking A rank. Darui screamed his head. It was at this point that 2 Senbon embedded themselves in Zabuza's neck, and he fell over lifeless. A hunter nin came out of the tree he was hiding in and walked over to the body. Focusing chakra into their ears, they listened in on what was being said. Thank you for your assistance. I've been tracking Zabuza for some time now, waiting for the opportunity to kill him, said the hunter nin as he jumped down to the body after Kakashi checked for a pulse. As for you in the trees, why don't you come out? There's no point in hiding anymore. This made the Kumo team tense, but jumped from their hiding spots anyway. The Konoha team was shocked when they appeared. Where the hell did they come from? Thought Sakura and Ino at the same time. What? I didn't even sense them. How is that possible? I'm not Chiha, an elite shinobi, thought Sasuke as the Kumo team approached Tazuna. Tazuna, I presume. We are the team from Kumo you requested. It appears though you already have some protection. Mind explaining yourself? Said Darui as he and his team completely ignored the genin, but kept a close eye on Kakashi, who was looking at Naruto intently. Blonde hair, blue eyes. 3 whisker marks on his cheeks. Could it be him? Kakashi's thoughts were going crazy, trying to figure out if this boy in front of him was truly his sensei's son. Tazuna, meanwhile, came up with a crap-ass excuse for having sent a request to 2 villages. While all of this was going on, the hunter nin left with the body, though this was noticed by everyone but the Konoha genin. Well, why don't we head to Tazuna's house? We can decide what to do there. Darui sighed while Kakashi lowered his headband back over his Sharingan and nodded in agreement. He's right. We can rest and make a decision later. Now, come on, let's get going. With that, they started making their way towards Tazuna's. While they walked, Kakashi noticed there was an obvious tension in the air that only seemed to become even more pronounced with the occasional slip of killing intent coming from the blonde boy with the Kumo team. He did notice that the only thing that seemed to calm him was his other blonde teammate's presence or touch. Once they made it back to Tazuna's house, they were greeted by Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, and his grandson Inari, who seemed to glare at the shinobi for no reason. Both teams now sat in the living room across from one another. Everyone seemed to be glaring at something or the other. Sasuke was glaring at Naruto for the obvious power he had, if the thickness and concentration of his killing intent was anything to go by. Sakura and Ino were both glaring at Naruto because Sasuke was. Karui was glaring at Ino and Sakura for glaring at her friend for no reason. Yujito was glaring at all 3 of them for what their village did to her Naruto. Naruto, however, was looking at the ground with cold blood-red eyes as he fought to control his anger. The only thing that stopped him from killing the 3 Konoha genin before him was the calming words of Kurama and the gentle and loving touch of the girl he was in love with. Their senseis were outside, deciding what should be done about the mission. It had been a few minutes since they left, and things were about to come to a head between the 2 teams when Sasuke looked like he was going to make a comment. But thankfully, for the team from Konoha, it was averted by the return of their senseis. Darui and Kakashi sensed the obvious tension in the air and knew that their decision would only help to escalate it. Well, we've decided to work together until the end of this mission, meaning there will be no fighting between our teams unless it is a training spar. Now, why don't we introduce ourselves, all right? My name is Kakashi Hataki, Jounin of Konohagakure, said Kakashi as he looked at the Kumo team. Turning to his students, he motioned for them to do the same. Sasuke Uchiha, heir of the Uchiha clan, growled out Sasuke. Sakura Haruno, heiress to the Haruno clan, said Sakura with a slight venom and fear in her voice. Ino Yamanaka, heiress to the Yamanaka clan, said Ino as she tried and failed to hide the fear in her voice. I'm Darui, Jounin of Kumogakure, and sensei to Team 20, said Darui, surprising the Konoha Genin. They had no idea that there are that many active teams in Kumo. Darui nodded towards his team, who returned the gesture. I'm Karui, said Karui in a monotone. Yujito ni, Yujito said in a similar voice. Kakashi looked at Naruto with anxiousness written on his face. This was the moment of truth. Was his sensei's son still alive or not? Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, said Naruto, not looking up from the floor. Kakashi was floored. His sensei's son was alive, and he knew of his parentage. Sakura, Ino, and Sasuke were shocked. This person was related to their fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Sakura, being the ever-annoying banshee of the team, decided to ask what was on all their minds, and by ask, I mean screech. Namikaze? What are you talking about? The only Namikaze was our fourth Hokage, and he didn't have any family or children. Even if he did, they would be from Konoha, not Kumo, she said, spitting the word Kumo like it was poison. Then you are as stupid as you are weak and useless, said Naruto, still not meeting anyone's gaze. Sakura was about to screech at him, until he lifted his head and met the Konoha's team's gaze, causing all of them to freeze. Naruto's eyes were blood red with a slit pupil. The eyes were so cold and uncaring and filled with almost unbridled hatred, and all of it was directed towards them. Naruto, what has happened to you? Thought Kakashi as he watched Yujito move closer to him and wrapped him in a hug. This had an immediate effect on him. His eyes returned to their usual vibrant blue, and he visibly relaxed. Well, with that out of the way, we need to come up with a plan of action. Zabuza is still alive, and that Hunter Nin is without a doubt his accomplice, said Kakashi as Sakura and Ino's eyes widened with this revelation. What? But Kakashi-sensei, that Hunter Nin killed him, didn't he? Asked Sakura, obvious fear in her voice. No, he didn't. If you had been paying attention, you would have noticed that the Hunter Nin used Senbon, not something that is normally used to kill someone, said Naruto, as he turned to looked at the Konoha Genin before turning back to his sensei. Sasuke was again glaring at Naruto for noticing something he and Uchiha didn't. Their sensei must have taught him all this. I'll make their sensei train me in everything he knows. He should be honored to train an Uchiha. Yes. Well, since we're going to be working together, why don't we have a little team spar to get a feel for each other's abilities, shall we? Said Kakashi as he led his team outside with Darui and his squad following. It was a few minutes later that they arrived at a sizable clearing where they could train. Okay, well, how about Karui and Ino? Go first, said Kakashi as the Kunoichi and the Kunoichi wannabe walked to the center of the clearing. You're going down? I was the best Kunoichi in the academy, said Ino boastfully. Whatever, just shut up, said Karui as she charged Ino and unleashed a barrage of punches and kicks on the poor girl. With one final kick, Ino was sent flying into a tree unconscious. Man, Konoha's standards for Kunoichi have sure fallen if she was the best of your class. Okay, well next Yujito and Sakura, you're up, said Darui, as he signaled to her not to go all out and finish it fast like Karui. Nodding in acknowledgement, Yujito sank into her stance and waited for Sakura to make the first move. She didn't have to wait long, as the pink-haired girl charged with a sloppy punch. Swatting away the poor excuse for an attack, Yujito copied Karui and sent Sakura crashing into a tree with a kick to the midsection and walked back over to her team. Well, last but not least, Naruto and Sasuke, said Kakashi, while the two shinobi walked into the center of the clearing and watched each other carefully. Neither moved for a few minutes until Sasuke shot forward with a punch aimed for Naruto's face. Naruto didn't move until the punch was mere centimeters from his face. Turning to the side, Naruto avoided the punch by mere inches. Surprised by the move, Sasuke was thrown a balance and paid the price for it. Naruto raised his knee and delivered a painful blow to Sasuke's solar plexus. Sasuke dropped to his knees, gasping for breath from the blow, giving Naruto an easy target to deliver an elbow to the back of his head, sending him into the ground and unconsciousness. Sakura and Ino, who had just regained consciousness in time to see the end of the fight, were stunned. Sasuke Uchiha, the Rookie of the Year and the last loyal Uchiha to Konoha, was just defeated almost effortlessly by some no-name from Kumo. Kakashi was in no better shape, though he hit it better. Naruto Namikaze, his sensei's legacy, and the boy everyone in Konoha thought to be dead, had just defeated the village's most prized genin in a matter of seconds. This year's Chunin exams are going to be interesting, thought Kakashi as he picked up a student and put him by his team. Well, that was interesting. How about once Sleepyhead here wakes up, we start training them, shall we? Darui nodded in agreement. He was proud of his team's growth, and they weren't even showing their true capabilities yet. After another 10 minutes, Sasuke finally woke up and was furious that some no-name from Kumo had defeated him so easily. It took Kakashi holding him back, and Darui threatening to kill him if he attacked his student, to keep him from attacking Naruto. All right, now that everyone is ready, we'll begin our training. What I'm going to teach you is how to climb trees, said Kakashi to his team while he demonstrated it by walking up a tree to the amazement of his genin. He hasn't even taught them the tree climbing exercise yet. Man, it's no wonder these guys are so weak. They can't do the basics of chakra control, was the shared thought between all the members of Team 20 and the two Bijou on the team. Kakashi saw the looks on everyone's faces and noticed the Kumo team was looking at him strangely, so they already know this exercise. Well, you know what my team is learning. Do yours need to work on this exercise as well? Asked Kakashi. Sasuke smirked at this. Here was his chance to show this Kumo team who was the superior shinobi. Similar thoughts were going through Sakura's and Ino's heads as well. Only theirs were revolving around their Sasuke-kun showing up the Kumo losers and proving they were better. No, my team already knows this basic exercise, said Darui as his squad all walked up some trees behind him, stopping near the middle of them to face the surprised Konoha genin. I'll be taking them to train separately for now. Starting tomorrow, we will begin rotation on who guards Tazuna. We'll take the first shift tomorrow. Darui walked away with his team in tow, leaving behind a guilt-filled Kakashi, a shocked Ino and Sakura, and a furious Sasuke. With Team 20. When they were far enough away, Darui turned to his team and motioned for them to sit down. Okay, team. First, I'll be showing each of you a jutsu I want you to learn. Karui, this is a water technique you'll be working on, said Darui as he started going through hand signs before finishing in the bird sign, water style, water wall jutsu. A wall of water rose from the surface of the lake and surrounded Darui. This is a defensive jutsu. We don't know what Zabu's accomplice is capable of, so we won't be taking any chances. When they strike again, Karui, it'll be up to you to provide support and defense for the injured, as well as Tazuna. Yujito, you'll act as a true assassin and try and take out either Zabuza or his apprentice, whichever provides an opening first. But you're also to give support to Karui if need be. Naruto, you'll be our heavy hitter on this one. You'll engage the fake Hunter Nin directly, but engage with caution. Find out what he can do, and then strike. None of you are to reveal much about your abilities unless absolutely necessary. Understand? Said Darui in an oddly serious voice. All three nodded, and he looked to Yujito before speaking again. All right, Yujito, I'll be showing you one of the few fire jutsu I know, he said, going through hand signs again, fire style, fireball jutsu. Taking a deep breath, Darui put his right hand to his lips before exhaling a giant ball of fire over the lake. This is an offensive jutsu that will deter any attacker. Unlike Kakashi, apparently, I want you to be able to truly protect yourself should things get hairy, said Darui as he looked at his students like one would a family. Naruto, I'll be teaching you two new jutsu. one for your wind affinity and a new lightning technique. First, the wind jutsu. He started going through hand signs again, wind style, great breakthrough. Darui once again brought his right hand to his mouth, but this time instead of a giant ball of fire, it was a powerful gust of wind that parted the water slightly when it passed over the lake. The great breakthrough could be used either as an offensive, defensive, or support jutsu. The reason I'm teaching you this jutsu is most of your other jutsu are either mid to long range. This jutsu should give you enough space to use another jutsu to attack. The lightning one is this, lightning style, lightning slash, said Darui once he finished hand signs again. His right hand erupted with lightning, swinging his hand down. Darui let loose a wave of lightning at a tree that was cut clean in half, while the two pieces sparked with electricity. This jutsu, depending on how much chakra you put into it and how much you condense, it can cut clean through anything or can paralyze a target for transportation and capture. Get to work. I'll be here if you need any help. With that team, 20 began training to master their new jutsus and prepare for Zabuza's arrival. A week later. In the week that passed, the tension between the two teams only seemed to increase. It started with the damnable Uchiha demanding that they give him their power, claiming he deserved it more than they did because he was an Uchiha elite. That interaction ended with Naruto punching Sasuke through a wall. Now that didn't sit well with Sakura and Ino as they tried to beat Naruto for harming their Sasuke-kun. They didn't get close enough to even carry out their threat before Yujito and Karui had them pinned with kunai to their necks. Kakashi, surprisingly, threatened to drop his team from the ninja program if they tried something stupid like that again. Another incident occurred when Team 20 caught Sasuke trying to spy on their training. That ended with Darui putting Sasuke into a Jinjutsu that kept him asleep for a day. Needless to say, he wasn't happy when he woke up. Currently, the teams were having a small breakfast before they all were going to protect Tizuna at the bridge. Before they left, Darui had his team make some clones to guard the house. Each made a lightning clone, or in Yujito's case, a fire clone. Once the house was secure, they made their way to the bridge, preparing for the fight they all knew was coming. When they reached the bridge, they found all of the workers unconscious and sprawled all over the bridge. A thick mist started to descend on the bridge, and out of it stepped Zabuza and the fake Hunter Nin. Well, we meet again, Kakashi. I've been waiting for this rematch. You, however, I'm not familiar with. Mind introducing yourself? I prefer to know the names of my opponents, said Zabuza as he pulled his Zanbato from his back and laid it on his shoulder. Man, this is dull. But yeah, I'm Darui of Kumo, said Darui in his usual bored tone that reminded the Konoha genin of a certain Nara. Zabuza's eyes widened when Darui introduced himself. It can't be, said Zabuza softly, his eyes going wide. Darui, as in Darui of the Black Lightning? Haku, finish the brats quickly and give me a hand when these two. I think we might actually have a hard fight ahead of us. So you know me, how dull. Oh well now, I don't have to hide my abilities, said Darui as he reached for his own sword. Kakashi raised his headband, revealing his Sharingan. He turned to his team and told them to guard Tizuna. Maybe taking this job wasn't such a great idea, thought Zabuza while he shifted into a fighting stance. Naruto, you know what to do. Yujito, Karui, be at the ready, said Darui as Naruto shot forward to engage the masked ninja. Said ninja jumped to avoid the blonde's initial strike, but noticed the Uchiha coming at him now. Blocking his kunai with a senbon, Haku spoke to them in a monotone. Forgive me, but I must kill you. With that, he started making one-handed hand signs. Naruto, seeing this, jumped away from the ninja, while Sasuke tried to force the ninja back. Finishing his hand signs, Haku stomped on the ground, splashing some of the water the mist created into the air, where it turned into needles and froze. Ice style. Ice needle rain. The needles shot towards Sasuke, who just barely got out of the way in time. An ice user, this should be interesting, thought Naruto before he threw two kunai at Haku's unguarded back, only to have them blocked by two senbon. Fire style. Fireball Jutsu, came the voice of Sasuke from the other side of their masked opponent. Both spun around in time to see a massive ball of fire coming at the both of them. That son of a bitch knew I was in the path of his jutsu, and he still attacked. If this Haku guy doesn't kill him, then I will, screamed Naruto in his head while he avoided the fireball. Leave some for me, Kit. That prick will pay for trying to attack us, came the enraged voice of Naruto's demonic tenant. So you will not give up? I have no choice then. The masked shinobi began going through more hand signs. Ice style, crystal ice mirrors. The water on the bridge rose and formed a dome of mirrors around the two genin. Haku stepped into one of the mirrors, and suddenly his reflection appeared in all of them. This is my jutsu. I'm sorry, but you must die. With that, a shower of sunban shot at the two genin. Kurama, I need to borrow your eyes, screamed Naruto to his nine-tailed friend. You got a Kit. As soon as Kurama finished, Naruto closed his eyes and felt the familiar prickling in his eyes, signaling the change. When he opened them, his eyes were now blood red with a black vertical slit down them, and the scara had turned black. Everything slowed down instantly, almost to the point of stopping. Pulling a kunai, Naruto started blocking or dodging all of the kunai that were coming his way. Damn it, if only I had my Sharingan, thought Sasuke as he tried to dodge and block the sunban coming towards him. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't doing too well. He was able to dodge or block a good number of sunban, but he couldn't get them all, and quite a few found their mark on his body. We need to get out of here and fast, but how? Thought Naruto as he continued to block or dodge the sunban being thrown at him before an idea struck. It probably won't work, but what the hell, let's try it. He ducked under another deadly needle and started performing hand signs for a jutsu Yujito taught him during their training while still weaving in and out of the flying needles. Finishing the set of signs with his hands and the tiger sign, he jumped towards the nearest mirror, hoping this plan would work. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Releasing the giant ball of fire at almost point-blank range sent Naruto skidding back towards the center of the dome. The jutsu, unfortunately, just glanced off of the mirror, barely even scratching the surface. So the mirrors are reinforced with chakra. It is useless. Nothing can destroy these mirrors, said Haku still in his monotone. Hey Kurama, care to help me shut this guy up? Naruto asked demonic tenant. Sure thing, Kit, let's show this guy what we're made of, was the reply he got from his first true friend. Naruto closed his eyes in concentration. Haku, seeing an opening, was about to launch another hail of sunban down on the blonde, but his movements halted when red chakra suddenly erupted from every point on the blonde's body. All life seemed to stop its movements at the feeling of fear and death that suddenly filled the area. Haku was frozen in place with 3 sunban in between his fingers when he felt the aura the chakra was producing. For a brief second, he thought he saw his life flash before his eyes. Sasuke was the closest to Naruto, and so was getting the full effect of the deadly aura. He started to sweat profusely, and his knees buckled under his weight. He tried to get back on his feet, only to fall onto his backside in the process. When he looked up to find the source, he saw his brother Itachi standing over his dead father and mother with his blood-covered sword still in his hands. Sakura and Ino were both on the ground, shaking like leaves in the wind. If it weren't for the fact that they were holding onto one anther, they both would have been laying on the ground from the feeling in the air. As it is, they were probably going to end up on the ground anyway, because they looked about ready to pass out. Kakashi was concerned. He could feel the aura of death and malice in the air and knew exactly what was causing it. Unlike most of the people on the bridge, he wasn't too affected by the feeling in the air since he had faced the real thing, and what was being given off was considerably less potent. The seal hasn't been broken. The feeling is too diluted for it to be the fox itself. It must be Naruto, but when did he learn to harness its power? Zabuza was frozen in shock. He could tell the feeling in the air was coming from some sort of chakra, but what shocked him was that the feeling the chakra was giving off was even more potent and deadly than his own. This feeling of death, it's even greater than what my own chakra gives off. It's even greater than the 4th Mizukage, Yugura's chakra. If this chakra is coming from one of those brats, then Haku is as good as dead, and I probably won't be far behind him. Darui and Karui were concerned. Naruto hardly ever used Kurama's chakra in a fight, unless it was training. For him to use Kurama's chakra in a fight, no matter how small, means that one of three things has happened. First, the opponent is truly strong, and Naruto felt they deserved to see him at his best. Second, he was in tight squeeze, and everything he's tried to get out of it has failed. Third, his opponent threatened Yujito. If it was the third option, then things were about to very dangerous very fast. Yujito was rooted in place at the feeling that was in the air. She knew it was Naruto who causing it, but the aura of death wasn't what had her rooted in place. No, it was feeling that the aura was having on her body. She couldn't explain it, but the feeling of dominance and absolute power that her teammate was emitting was really turning her on. Her tenant wasn't exactly helping in the matter either. Damn it, Kitten, I swear if you don't hurry up and get in his pants, I'm going to take over and do it myself. I may like to be submissive, but damn it, I have needs to Kitten, and I want my Kyuku in time, and I want it now. The feeling of death only seemed to increase, as well as Yujito's rising arousal, as Naruto focused and concentrated all of the chakra into his right fist. Once the chakra was ready, Naruto launched forward and threw his fist towards the same mirror he used his jutsu on. Haku expected the punch be useless against his jutsu, but was shocked when the blonde's punch shattered the mirror. Taking advantage of his opponent's momentary state of shock, Naruto grabbed the emo by the collar and sprinted through the opening he created and regrouped with his teammates. Haku released his jutsu and prepared to attack them, when he noticed one of the blonde girls was missing. He didn't have time to react, however, before a blade pierced his throat. "Don't mess with Kumo Shinobi. We never leave our opponents alive," said Yujito from behind the boy. "I can't believe I was able to concentrate enough to kill him. As soon as we get back to Tazuna's house, I'm heading straight to the bathroom. No way in hell am I doing anything with Karui in the same room," thought Yujito while she removed her kunai from Haku's throat and moved back to her team, while Haku's lifeless corpse slumped to the ground. Ino and Sakura stared at her. They couldn't believe she had just killed someone without as much as a second thought, combined with the lingering effects of the chakra from before they were barely holding on to the conscious plane. Sasuke, on the other hand, was furious that these Kumo bastards were able to fend off and kill someone when he couldn't. While the lingering effects from Kurama's chakra had Sakura and Ino wanting to faint, it only helped to increase his rage at the obvious power this team had. "Seems like your accomplice has been killed. Why don't you just surrender before we have to kill you as well?" said Darui while he and Zabuza locked blades. Zabuza, though, just laughed before breaking away from the struggle and going for another strike only to have blocked. He may still be shaken from the effects of the chakra from earlier, but he wouldn't let his opponents know that. "It doesn't matter. Haku was nothing more than a tool for me to use. His death means nothing to me." This made Darui's blood boil. He despised people who treated others like they were trash or nothing but a pawn to be thrown away when it was useless. This was why he had such a strong, if well concealed, hatred of Kanahagakure. They had treated his prized student, his successor, his little brother like he was lower than dirt. Both turned their attention to the sound of chirping birds, only to see Kakashi with lightning visible in his hand. Knowing what the jutsu was from Kakashi's profile in the bingo book, Darui broke away from Zabuza and went through hand signs as fast as possible. Lightning style, lightning paralysis, Darui rushed and struck Zabuza with his lightning-encased hands. Zabuza was paralyzed before he knew what happened. Kakashi saw the opening his fellow Jounin had created and charged at the prone Zabuza. Time slowed down for Zabuza as the deadly jutsu neared him. And for the first time since he graduated from the academy, Zabuza felt fear wash over him. He killed his entire graduating class without batting an eyelash, killed countless people without a second thought, faced down the fourth Mizukage and got away alive. But now it was clear he was going to die, and there wasn't any chance of him surviving. Kakashi ran his hand through Zabuza's heart, killing him instantly. Pulling his hand from the corpse, Kakashi watched as it fell to the ground, its eyes still open with the look of fear forever etched into them. He and Darui made their way over to their teams to make sure they were all right. Other than Sasuke having the wounds from the Sunbon attack and his severely hurt ego, everyone was relatively unharmed. Sakura and Ino were shaken from the events, but given time and someone to talk to, they would be fine. The two teams were preparing to leave with Tazuna, who had miraculously stayed conscious from exposure to Kurama's power, when they heard the sound of clapping coming from the end of the bridge. The mist that had been dissipating since Zabuza's death finally cleared, revealing a small army of bandits and thugs with a short man with balding gray hair wearing a black business suit, standing in front of them. "Gato," Tazuna growled out. "Tazuna, why don't you just surrender and die already?" said Gato as the bandits behind him let vicious smirks cross their lips at the thought of finally getting to kill something. "Go to hell, Gato!" screamed Tazuna in defiance. Gato only sighed and shook his head before turning to the army behind him. "Kill them all, but leave the girls they should be entertaining to break." Gato allowed a lecherous grin to cross his face as he turned back to the shinobi and looked at Yujito with his grin turning into a twisted smirk. The bandits gave similar grins before they prepared to charge, but they never got the chance before time seemed to slow down and the air itself seemed to freeze and die with the aura of death that suddenly covered the bridge. The shinobi turned to the source of the killing intent only to meet a VR pissed off Naruto, Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto currently had his arm around Yujito while he watched the army with as much hatred he could muster, which was quite a bit considering how much killing intent he was leaking out. His eyes had once again become the blood red with slitted pupil, but this time the scare stayed white. But there was something different this time. His eyes were much colder and held nothing but death in them. Death that was directed at Gato and his thugs. "Kurama, give me everything you can. This bastard is going to die. Do it, Kit." He threatened both of our mates. "Make him pay, Kit," screamed Kurama as he gave his host every ounce of chakra he could without causing them to go berserk. Naruto was soon covered in his three-tailed chakra cloak. While it would normally cause him some slight pain, it appeared that Gato had caused him to unconsciously grow to a level that he could use three tails, almost four, without a chance for self-harm or going berserk. "You'll pay for that, Gato," Naruto said in a blood-chilling voice with such a powerful demonic edge that without his human appearance, he could be mistaken for an actual demon. Team 7 was scared out of their minds. Naruto was letting off a huge amount of killing intent, and the air was once again filled with the same aura of death from before. Sasuke, Sakura, and Ino were rooted on the spot. Never before had they felt such power and at the same time, such fear. It was only a few seconds after they were exposed to this power that the inevitable happened. Sakura and Ino each passed out, while Sasuke fell to his knees, breathing heavily and barely clinging to consciousness. Darui and Karui were worried. The amount of power Naruto was giving off was getting dangerously close to the amount he could use before he went berserk. They both knew that the second Gato finished his sentence, he had signed his death warrant. What they didn't know was how harshly Naruto would react to this threat. It was blatantly obvious that Naruto loved Yujito, but they had no idea how deep his love for her ran. It seemed they would soon learn. The only one who didn't seem even a little put off by the power and killing intent Naruto was giving off was Yujito. In fact, she was feeling the exact opposite to what everyone else was feeling. She felt safe and protected, like nothing bad could happen to her so long as Naruto was with her. She wasn't the only one who was being affected this way from the power Naruto was giving off. Matatabi was a quivering mess. She was so turned on, and for the first time, she couldn't make any comment about getting Naruto alone and just having him, though Yujito's own thoughts were doing that for her. Naruto removed his arm from Yujito and began walking towards the still frozen army of bandits. A looming figure seemed to form from the power in the air, and everyone present was scared even more than they were before. Above Naruto, staring intently at the new souls it would soon devour, was an image of the Shinigami himself. his spiky white hair contrasting greatly with his pale, peeling gray skin. Drawing his ninjato, Naruto formed a one-handed sign, and the head of the fox on the sword opened and flames engulfed the blade. Raising the blade over his shoulder, Naruto swung his sword towards the group of thugs, letting loose a wave of burning death at them. Gato, seeing the danger, ran to the back of his little army to get away. The thugs at the front of the army, however, were burned to a crisp. They didn't even have a chance to scream before their bodies were turned to ash. Taking advantage of their momentary distraction, Naruto shot forward with his sword as his side. As he neared the army, the flames around his sword intensified and turned black from the power behind them. Once he reached the army, Naruto began fighting his way through them, slicing and killing any and all who got his way from reaching his target, Gato. When he finally reached the short businessman, he didn't hesitate and beheaded him without a second thought. The thugs froze when they saw their meal ticket die. The however was replaced by anger in the next second. "You bastard, you killed our meal ticket. Now you're going to pay Brad. And once we're done with you, we'll have some fun with those girls, especially that blonde girlfriend of yours," said one of the thugs while the others shouted their agreement. This pushed Naruto over the edge as his cloak grew a fourth tail, and he let out a menacing roar that seemed to echo for miles. The thugs were again frozen as the feeling of death increased 100-fold. Some of the weaker ones were being driven insane from the exposure and were killing themselves just to escape it. He turned to look at the remaining thugs and didn't wait for a reaction. He charged into them with his sword, a blur of black flames, as he sliced and killed the remaining thugs. Kakashi was stunned. His little brother was killing hundreds of thugs like it was nothing. What scared him a little, though, was the fact that his teammates and sensei didn't seem to faze that he was killing so easily, or that he was using the fox's chakra. Darui and Killer Bee seemed slightly worried, though. Sasuke was scared. He had been trying to figure out how strong Naruto was by challenging him in fights and spying on his training. Right now, though he seemed to have gotten his answer, Naruto was fighting off and killing an entire army of thugs single-handedly. He was suddenly hit with a feeling of pure and utter helplessness. As he continued to watch the massacre happening before him, he couldn't help but remember the only other time he had ever felt truly helpless, the night his brother slaughtered their clan. Naruto now stood in the middle of what could only be described as a bloodbath. Bodies, limbs, organs, and blood littered the end of the bridge. Not a single thug was left alive after Naruto's assault. Sheathing his ninjato, he made his way back towards his team and enveloped Yujito in a hug. Though he had to hold her up as her knees gave out the second his skin touched hers, and whispered in her ear, "No one will ever lay a hand on you, so long as I'm here," he whispered. This only caused her to hold on to him tighter and let a small smile grace her face. Smiling at the scene before him, Darui decided to speak up. "Well, why don't we head on back to Dazuna's? I think we all deserve a nice long rest after today." Everyone nodded in agreement, and Kakashi made 2 clones to carry Sakura and Ino, who were still out cold. A week later, Team 20 and Team 7 now stood at the end of the completed bridge, ready to return to their respective homes. Before them was over half of Wave's population, saying goodbye and giving their thanks to them. At the head of the Wave group was none other than Tazuna and his family. "Thank you all for your help in completing the bridge. Wave will always be indebted to you for your help. Once we have the money, I'll send the full mission payment to each of your villages," said Tazuna, with gratitude filling his voice. Team 20 smiled at the praise and nodded in acceptance. Team 7, on the other hand, smirked like they had done all the work and deserved this kind of respect more often. Kakashi sighed as he knew if he couldn't break them of that, then they were doomed to fail one day soon. "Don't worry about it, Tazuna. Just do what you can and rebuild Wave to its previous glory," said Naruto as he and his team turned and started making their way back to their village. Team 7 followed soon after and set off in another direction back to Konoha. "Hey Tazuna, what are we going to call the bridge?" asked a random villager as they watched their saviors walk away. "How about the Great Naruto Bridge? In honor of the man who rid this country of a tyrant, said Tazuna, getting cheers and shouts of joy from the villagers. That boy, he'll go far. It was an honor to meet you, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, thought Tazuna as he watched Naruto and his team disappear over the horizon. It was almost sundown before Team 20 saw the mountains that their village was built on through the trees as they continued jumping through the trees. We're finally home, said Karui with a small smile. They had been moving almost non-stop since they left Wave. Darui didn't want to take the chance of Konoha sending anyone after them for Naruto, and Naruto wanted to hurry and get home so he could begin training in his clan sealing techniques. It'll be dull, but once we get back to the village, we will report directly to Boss and give our report. After that, Naruto, Yujito, go find Bee and work with your tenants. Karui, you'll be coming with me for some Kenjutsu training, said Darui while his team nodded, though slightly confused. Darui-sensei, why do you want us to start so much training all of a sudden? Asked Yujito, while Karui and Naruto nodded their heads in agreement. Darui sighed at this. He knew his team wouldn't let the sudden increase in their training go unnoticed or unquestioned, and the reason behind it would probably piss them off. Because the Chunin exams are approaching, and I want all of you to be prepared, said Darui, hoping the answer would satisfy his team. His hopes were for naught, though. His team just gave him even more confused and questioning looks. They were already at a level that they could easily pass. The Chunin exams. Naruto's face suddenly darkened as a thought struck. Crap. Looks Naruto might have figured it out, thought Darui with a grimace as his only male student turned to look at him. The Chunin exams are in Konoha this year, aren't they? He asked with a scowl. Karui and Yujito adopted looks of understanding for a split second, before they were replaced with scowls at the thought of Konoha and concerned looks towards their blonde teammate. Yes, Naruto, they're in Konoha this year. While I would like to keep you from taking them until they were held elsewhere or here in Kumo, I can't. It is in the village's best interest to show that we are still strong by sending powerful representatives to exams such as these. You three are one of the best teams to ever come from our village. Your potential is probably on par with that of Kakashi's when he was younger. While a shinobi's most important weapon is deception, it is also crucial for a village to make its strength known to scare off other countries and villages from attacking and to help prevent war. Because of that, I will nominate you three for the exams, but we will not be doing many missions when we return, only enough for you to participate in the exams. For the next 3 months, I will be training you into the ground to prepare you for anything that might happen during the exams. Understand, said Darui with all signs of his laid-back nature gone, replaced with that of a battle. Hardened shinobi who wanted to protect those dear to him. Naruto and his team, mates nodded in understanding. They needed to be strong to survive the exams and to defend themselves from anything Konoha might try to get the heir of Minato Namikaze back. They reached the village gates a few minutes afterward and wasted no time in getting to the Raikage office to give their report. When they arrived, they found a Raikage in the mission room with a few Chunin and Jounin assisting him with mission reports and assigning missions. Hey boss, mission to protect bridge builder Tazuna completed, though there were some complications, said Darui when he and his team were in front of the Raikage. What kind of complications? Asked the Raikage with a raised eyebrow. Not much could go wrong on a C-rank mission. Well, for one, the client lied about the mission importance. The requested protection from thugs and bandits was false. The client had ninja out to kill him, said Darui, catching the attention of many in the room. This alone made the mission B rank, but it became an A rank when we encountered Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist and an accomplice of his. This made many in the room go wide-eyed. Zabuza and the other 7 swordsmen were respected and feared in Kumo for their mastery of Kenjutsu. For a rookie Genin team to face him and not only survive but win was unheard of. Also, it turns out the client requested help from another village as well. On our way to rendezvous with the client, we came across another Genin team guarding him while their Jounin engaged Zabuza. What village were they from? Asked, hoping it wasn't who he thought it was. Like Darui, though, his hopes were for naught. They were from Kanahagakure no Sato, said Naruto with a slight growl in his throat. This made everyone in the room, even a few Jounin and Chunin about to leave for a mission, go rigid. If Konoha found out that the only son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki had joined Kumogakure, it could be potential war between the two villages. Yes, they were from Konoha. Not only that, but the sensei for the team was none other than the prize student of the fourth Hokage, the copy ninja Kakashi Hitaki, said Darui. This only increased everyone's worry of war. If anyone would recognize Naruto, it would be the last surviving student of his father. And it seemed that his team is not that skilled, which is surprising considering the composition of the team. Many raised eyebrows at this. If Kakashi was training a team, this should be the best that Konoha had to offer. Who was on his team? Darui asked like everyone else, he thought that a team trained by Kakashi should be just as strong as Darui's team. It is comprised of Sasuke Uchiha, the sole surviving member of the Uchiha massacre and rightful heir of the Uchiha clan, Sakura Haruno, heiress of the Haruno clan who are known for their split personalities, and Ino Yamanaka, heiress of the mind-walking Yamanaka clan. Though their ancestry is well known, if a bit overplayed, their skills as shinobi and kunoichi are horrible at best. The two heiresses were complete and total fangirls for the Uchiha. And while the Uchiha may have skill, he is arrogant and has been spoiled by the village. He believes he deserves to have everything handed to him without question. This led to a few situations between the teams when he tried to force me to train him and where he tried to attack Naruto. Both situations were dealt with and avoided before they could happen. As for the mission itself, everything went smoothly for the most part. Naruto engaged Zabuza's accomplice with the Uchiha, but kept his skills hidden for the most part, while Kakashi and I engaged Zabuza and managed to kill him, said Darui, after he finished Naruto. Stepped forward to give a report on his fight. Like Brui-sensei said, I engaged Zabuza's accomplice in combat with the Uchiha joining me. I hid my true skills and let the Uchiha fight to get an understanding of what both of them could do. The fight was going in our favor until our opponent used a jutsu called Crystal Ice Mirrors. The jutsu created a dome of ice mirrors around the Uchiha and I, and he launched a barrage of Sanbon using the mirrors to increase his speed. I managed to deflect and dodge all the Sanbon aimed at me, while the Uchiha was turned into a pincushion almost. After that, I tried using a fire jutsu to melt the mirrors. The jutsu failed because the mirrors were reinforced with chakra. So to avoid any unnecessary death, I called on Kurama's chakra and used a chakra enhanced punch to shatter one of the mirrors and escape with the Uchiha in tow. Once we escaped, our opponent released his jutsu and prepared to attack us, only for Yujito-chan to kill him with a kunai to the back of his throat. After both of them were killed, Gato showed up with an army of mercenaries and threatened to kill us and have his way. With Yujito, Karui, and the Leaf Kunoichi, at this point Naruto started to leak some killing intent that had many on edge. They knew Naruto cared deeply for his team, especially Yujito. They feared what he would do if anyone tried to harm them. They were about to find out. Once he said that, I snapped, I accessed my cloak and charged head first into his army and began to decimate them with my ninjato. When I reached Gato himself, I decapitated him without a second thought. This didn't sit well with the remainder of his army, and they started screaming about killing me and having their way with Yujito-chan. I called on Kurama's chakra again and managed to get control over the fourth tail. The flames around my sword from my previous attack intensified, and I killed any remaining thugs. No one threatens Yujito-chan or Karui in my presence without consequences. He finished with a scowl on his face. To say everyone was scarred of the blonde before them would be an understatement. He was only a genin, yet he took on a defeated an army of mercenaries single-handedly, and if what he said was true, he didn't even get injured. They all made a mental note to never ever try and mess with Karui or Yujito, especially Yujito, lest they face Naruto's supreme wrath. Speaking of Yujito, she walked up to Naruto and wrapped him in a calming hug, effectively cutting off his anger and killing intent. The Raikage and his assistants sighed in relief once the killing intent stopped flowing from the blonde. Like his father before him, he is already defeating armies of opponents. I pray for the unfortunate soul that is stupid enough to insult or threaten Yujito when Naruto is near, especially if she isn't there to calm him down. Thought A as he finished writing down the mission report. All right, Team 20, you're dismissed. Darui, I need a word with you, said the Raikage. Team 20 nodded and left, with Darui saying he would find them later for training. Turning to his boss, Darui had an idea as to what he wanted to talk to him about, but decided to wait for his boss to ask. Darui, as you know, the Chunin exams are soon. Do you believe your team is ready to take them? Yeah, boss. They're more than ready for the exams, but they aren't for another 3 months, and in that time I plan on training them as much as I can, and they will only complete the minimum number of missions required to participate. If that's all, boss, I better get started on their training. Oh, before I forget, Bee and Dodai will be busy helping me train them, so they won't be available much for the next few months. See ya, said Darui as he walked out of the office and went in search of his team to up their training. Those three are going to be unimaginably powerful when they reach their true potential. That is a day I cannot wait to see, thought A as he went back to assigning missions and filing the reports. The next day, Darui stood in front of refreshed and determined Team 20 with Killer Bee at his side. Dodai wouldn't be joining them until the end of the week. They had just finished detailing the training schedule they had designed specifically for the 3 genin, and they weren't the least bit surprised that Team 20 seemed to just take in stride. All right, team. To start off our training, each of you will be doing something different. Karui, you, and I will be working on Kenjutsu, while Yujito, you will be training with B to gain some more control over Matatabi's chakra. Naruto, I want you to start reading through the scrolls you recovered from that bandit camp on our first C rank. Each of them nodded when they heard what they would be training in for today. Let's get started. That said, they all went to their own section of the training ground and began their training. Naruto sat down in the shade of a tree and unsealed the chest containing the Uzumaki clan scrolls he recovered from the bandit camp. Biting his thumb, he smeared his blood onto the seal in the center of the clan symbol and heard the click signaling the chest was unlocked. Opening the chest, Naruto mentally debated about what he should start with, before he remembered something he learned in the academy about the second Hokage wielding the Raijin. Reaching for the scroll that matched the color of his hair, Naruto, again, smeared some of his blood in a blood seal on the outside of the scroll before opening it to find it once again written in clean, crisp handwriting. Must have been the sealing my clan was known for. Any imperfections in even one part of the seal and the entire thing would fail, thought Naruto before he began reading the scroll with the information on the Raijin. To any future Uzumaki. My name is Totosai Uzumaki. I'm the master weapons forger for the Uzumaki clan. This scroll, along with its 4 brothers, contains everything I know about in the art of forging, as well as information about my greatest creations, the elemental swords. Just to let you know, this little intro is in all of the scrolls, so don't worry about having to read it over and over again. Now back to my reason for writing this. The elemental swords were the most prized weapons the Uzumaki had at their disposal. I was inspired to create these 5 swords when I saw the destructive power of nature while sitting outside during a maelstrom. I know what you're thinking. This guy is completely insane, but let me tell you not to knock it till you try it. Now, as per the swords themselves, they are named after the 5 gods of the elements. Fujin, the god of wind, Kajijin, the god of fire, Suijin, the god of water, Chijin, the god of earth, and Raijin, the god of thunder. This scroll is about the Raijin, if the name on the scroll is any indication. It is a magnificent, if a simple-looking weapon. At first glance, it doesn't appear to be more than a metal handle, but when chakra is applied to it, its true form is revealed. A blade made of pure lightning surges forth from the handle. The blade is capable of cutting through almost anything, the only exceptions being its own brothers. The forging of this blade took years to complete, since the amount of power it was going to hold was so great a special, or was required to forge the handle. I spent almost an entire year trying to find the right, or that would be able to handle the concentrated power of lightning that was to be held within it. I searched relentlessly, scouring the entire nation to find such an ore. My quest ended when I discovered a vein of what I call Raikane. This unique ore was perfectly suited to be the handle for the Raijin, as the metal produced a natural current of electricity around it and stored large amounts inside of it. Once I found the Raikane, I immediately began to forge the Raijin. I finished the physical part of the sword after a year of forging, and all I had left to do was infuse it with the natural and devastating power of lightning. I knew I would not be able to complete this part of the sword on my own, so I requested the help of some of our clan's best seal masters to help me create a seal to capture the lightning and to infuse it into the Raijin. However, something strange happened when we started the process of infusing the lightning into the Raijin. A bolt of lightning, blacker than an Uchiha's eyes, came from the skies and struck the Raijin. Instead of disappearing like most lightning bolts, this one seemed to be absorbed into the Raijin. To this day, I still do not know what happened. All I know is that with the absorbing of that black bolt of lightning, the Raijin was completed. Well, that's all the information about the Raijin I can give you, since it's been nearly 60 years since I forged the elemental swords. The only other thing I can tell you about it is where its resting place is. High atop the mountains, in the heart of the storm, the Raijin sits, waiting to be reborn. Well, have fun. Todosai Uzumaki. That hardly explained anything about the Raijin. Oh well, take what you get, I suppose. But if what Todosai said was true, then the Raijin should have been locked away somewhere. If the second Hokage was said to wield the Raijin, then he somehow broke into an Uzumaki stronghold and took it. If that's true, then it's possible that the others were found as well. If so, then it is my duty as the last Uzumaki to reclaim them, thought Naruto before he rolled the scroll back up and placed back into the chest. Looking up briefly, he noticed that his teammates were still busy training with their senseis, so he decided to go ahead and start to learn his clan's sealing arts. Removing the large black scroll, he bit his thumb and smearing his blood over the seal in the center of the scroll. The second his blood came in contact with the seal, the scroll sprung open, revealing the beginning lessons in the Uzumaki sealing techniques. He was about to begin reading when he noticed a small storage seal in the corner of the scroll with a chibi version of the Uzumaki who wrote this scroll pointing at it. Deciding to see what was in the seal that was so special, he unsealed whatever was inside. When the slight smoke cleared, it revealed another much smaller scroll. Opening the small scroll revealed it to be instructions for an Uzumaki clan jutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Curiosity piqued. Naruto began reading through the instructions on the jutsu. What he discovered almost had him jumping around training ground 20 like a 6-year-old who just drank a gallon of coffee during Christmas. This type of clone had a memory transfer function, which would allow for infiltration and information gathering missions to be that much less dangerous for his team. But he could also use the Shadow Clone Jutsu to help him train, which is what he planned on doing the second he had it mastered. Setting the scroll down to try the jutsu for the first time, Naruto took to it like a fish to water, managing to create about 30 clones. Oh, things just got a whole lot more interesting. Thought both Bijou and Jinchuriki before they dive back into learning the unique art of sealing, Uzumaki style. 3 months later. A massive crowd of people who had gathered at the main gate of the Kumo Gakure, from civilian to shinobi alike, all of them had gathered to see off one of the most promising teams to ever come from their village. Before them stood Team 20, each looking towards the crowd with determination burning in their eyes. A determination to prove themselves and to make their village proud of them. They would become Chunin and they would bring glory to their village. At the head of the crowd stood the Reikage, with Bee and Dodai on his left and Team 20 Sensei on his right. Darui couldn't help but be proud of them. In the 3 months they had spent training, they had come far. Each of them was Chunin level easily, but despite what many civilians thought about the team having already reached its peak in potential, he knew that they had only scratched the tip of the iceberg. They were far from reaching their peaks. Naruto's outfit was one of the many things that changed about him during their 3 months training. He now wore Umbu-style black pants that were covered in invisible storage seals, along with a black sleeveless shirt that did nothing to hide his toned muscles. Since he had begun his training in the art of sealing, he had taken to wearing a cloak similar to his father's. Instead of a white cloak with red flames licking the bottom, he wore a high-collared blood-red cloak with 2 nine-tailed foxes on the back. The heads of the foxes were near his shoulders with mouths open, looking ready to bite into his shoulders. In between the 2 foxes was Kumo's black fox, written in kanji. His ninjato was strapped to his back, and his headband was tied around his left bicep. Another thing that had changed about his appearance, though, was the additional tattoos of his arms. He still bore the kanji for lightning on his right shoulder, but under that one he bore the kanji for earth. His left shoulder held the kanji for wind, with the kanji for fire under it. During the 3 months they had spent training, Naruto had mastered about half of the Uzumaki sealing basics thanks to liberal use of the Shadow Clone. That wasn't the only thing he focused on, if his tattoos were any indication. To bear the tattoo of your elemental nature, you had to master the manipulation of the element. Like Yujito, he had trained with Dodai, Kumo's prominent lava-style user, in the manipulation of his fire and earth affinities. Training his wind affinity was the hardest one, however, as wind users were a rarity even in Suna. He had also started working on learning the techniques that the third Reikage had left with Darui to pass on to successor. While he was nowhere near mastering the 2, he had managed to use one of them, if only for a short time. As he looked out towards the crowd that had come to see them off, his right arm slipped around Yujito's waist, holding her to him. Yujito hadn't changed her appearance much. She still wore her black pants with a cloud pattern on them along with her black and purple blouse. She had black wrappings up to her elbows on both arms now, with her same purple, fingerless gloves and beads wrapped around her left forearm. Her shuriken holster was attached to her right leg, with her new wakizashi short sword strapped to the left side of her waist. One major difference in her appearance, however, was the addition of her purple high-collared cloak with 2 two-tailed cats on the back, much like Naruto's own. Naruto had given it her as a gift. When he finally asked her to be his girlfriend, they had been dating for about 2 months, and it didn't look like they planned on stopping anytime soon. During their 3 months of training, she had managed to finally use Matatabi's second tail with her chakra cloak without going berserk. On top of that, had mastered the elemental manipulation of her fire and lightning elements. But that was nothing to what Matatabi had told her. Apparently now that she could use her 2-tailed cloak form, she could start learning some of Matatabi's unique jutsu. She had spent a majority of their time training, working with Matatabi, learning her jutsu. When she felt her boyfriend's arm wrap around her waist, she just leaned into him and let him hold her. Karui stood smiling at the scene of her team, mates in each other's arms. When they told her they were dating, her first reaction was to scream, "It's about damn time," at them. She, like her team, had changed her outfit during their training. She now wore a gray high-collared shirt that opened up some in the front that looked like it had had the sleeves turn off. She had on skin-tight black shorts that reached about mid-thigh with black stockings that reached slightly past her knees. She also wore a long black skirt that reached a little past her knees and opened up in the front to allow movement. Her katana was still strapped to her back, and she still wore her headband like a bandana. Like her teammates, she hadn't been idle with her training. She had spent a lot of time training with Darui in Kenjutsu, and also working on a few techniques from her clan scrolls. She had mastered her water and lightning affinities and had increased her jutsu repertoire, giving her a good balance of water and lightning jutsu. Darui walked away from the crowd and towards his students. It was time that they left for the Chunin exams. Turning to the crowd that had gathered, he spoke in his usual bored tone. "Well, it might a little dull afterwards, but I promise you that my team will all become Chunin." This got a roar of cheers and praise from the crowd. Team 20 seemed to stand just a little bit straighter with the obvious faith and trust their village had in them. Take care of them, Darui, and I expect to see all three of you in the finals of the Chunin exams, said A as Team 20 nodded in acknowledgement. B stepped forward and bent down to look Naruto and Yujito in the eyes. Be careful, you two. Konoha already know Naruto is the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, and that alone will make them come after him. Try and keep a low profile until I get to the village with Bro to watch the finals. If they learn that both of you are Jinchuriki, or they try anything to capture you, you have my permission to use your cloaks and defend yourself by whatever means necessary. Got it? The two blondes nodded in agreement. They knew that if Konoha caught wind of another Jinchuriki in their village, they wouldn't hesitate to try and capture them. All right, team, let's move, said Darui as he turned and started making his way down the mountain away from the village. Team 20 took one last look at their village before following their sensei. The crowd that had gathered watched with pride as the three genin made their way to the next step of their lives, the evening sun casting a soft glow around the three. Near the lighting fire country border. They had been walking for about 3 hours, and they were nearing the border between lightning country and fire country, before a thought struck Naruto. Hey, Darui-sensei, how come Samui and Omoi's team isn't taking the Chunin exams with us? This seemed to catch his mate's attention since they turned to their sensei with confused or questioning looks. Sure didn't think they were ready yet. Samui and Omoi work well together, and their teamwork is almost flawless together, but Samaki will hardly cooperate with her teammates. Sure told me that she is still a die-hard fangirl of yours, Naruto, and no matter what he's tried, he can't seem to break her of it. That's why he didn't enter them in the Chunin exams. As a team, they aren't ready, said Darui with a sigh. He felt sorry for his partner, having to put up with an annoying fangirl screaming about how their true love was going to come and sweep them off their feet. Naruto shivered slightly and stifled a growl as he remembered Tsumaki from his first day in the academy. She had insulted Yujito and tried to turn him against her. Ever since that day, she had not left him alone and kept on badgering him for a date or trying to make him quit hanging out with Yujito. There had been a few close calls when Naruto almost listened to Kurama and torn the annoying girl to shreds, but luckily Yujito or one of their friends had been there to stop him. Yujito and Karui scowled at the memory of Tsumaki. Yujito tightened her hold on her boyfriend's hand slightly, her possessive cat nature coming out slightly. All right, team, we'll call it night for now and set up camp. We'll leave at first light, said Darui as he put his traveling pack on the ground and began setting up a campsite. Team 20 started doing the same, each setting up a tent of their own and placing a few traps around the camp. Naruto, why? Don't you go get us some dinner, but be careful, we're close to the border and Leaf Umbu might be near. Naruto nodded his head in understanding. If Kakashi had mentioned him in his report, the Hokage would probably order anyone who spotted him to capture him alive and return him to the village. He jumped into the forest and began a hunt for something they could all eat, preferably a boar or a few rabbits. He was about to continue moving in search of something when he noticed a boar in the distance. Perfect, he thought as he approached the boar, as quietly as possible. Drawing his ninjato, he channeled some of his wind chakra into it and launched a blade of wind at his prey. The boar didn't know what happened. One second it was eating grass, the next it was dead with a huge gash on its side. Naruto sealed the dead boar into a storage scroll to make it easier to get it back to the camp. He was about to start making his way back to his team when he felt multiple chakra signatures approaching. Crap, that's not my team, and with the way they're being masked, they have to be Umbu. His guess was proven correct, because the next thing he knew, he was surrounded by a squad of 4 Umbu. 3 of them wore black cloaks, while one had on a white cloak. The ones in the black cloaks had masks with the faces of a snake, a turtle, and a cat, while the one with the white cloak had a dog mask. If I remember correctly, a white cloak is the sign of an Umbu captain, and black is just regular Umbu, thought Naruto, as the captain stepped forward. Naruto Uzumaki, you are to come with us at once. The voice sounded familiar to Naruto, but he couldn't quite place it. Deciding to try and bide as much time as he could, Naruto responded, "I'm sorry, but I don't know anyone by the name of Naruto Uzumaki," he said, keeping all emotion out of his voice. "Now, if you don't mind, I should be getting back to my team now." "We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow," said Naruto, as he tried to walk past the Umbu, only to be blocked by the turtle Umbu. "My mistake. I mean Naruto Namikaze. You will come with us back to Konoha," said the Umbu in more forceful tone. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. He recognized that tone and the voice from his mission to wave. "Well, what do you know? Kakashi Hitaki. It's been quite some time since I saw you last," said Naruto, trying and failing to hide the humor in his voice. The rest of the Umbu team flinched slightly. How did he know it was Kakashi leading this team? "I'm surprised, Kakashi. I thought you had resigned from Umbu duty to train that pathetic group of brats you call a team." "I was reinstated for this one mission, to rescue you from those bastards in Kumo that kidnapped you," said Kakashi as he removed his mask. "All of us here were assigned to Umbu for this single mission. Remove your masks." Kakashi's squad did as instructed, and one by one they removed their masks, revealing some very familiar faces to Naruto. So, the Hokage thought that sending some of the few people I was actually close to while I was in Konoha would convince me to return to that hellhole of a village, said Naruto, with venom lacing his voice, causing everyone present to flinch at the tone. But did he send you because you're the best in your fields? He probably sent you Kurenai hoping to trap me in a genjutsu for easy transport back, right? The rest of you were probably sent to stop me if I broke out of Kurenai's genjutsu, guide attire. Me in taijutsu, Anko to track and capture me if I somehow manage to escape, and Kakashi to ID me and try and weaken me with ninjutsu as a last resort, said Naruto with a bored look. The four present were shocked beyond belief. Naruto had just figured out each of their roles on this team, like it was nothing. Okay, I don't have a lot of time. They'll get over their shock quick. I just hope it works this time, thought Naruto as he started gathering lightning chakra all around his body. The temporary Umbu were pulled out of their shock when they heard the crackling of lightning. They looked to see the source of it being Naruto, who was encased in a coat of lighting. Not wasting any time, Naruto shot off towards his team at blinding speeds. The Umbu team didn't have a chance to react before he was already out of sight. Damn it, he got away, said Anko as she continued to look at the spot Naruto had disappeared. Yeah, but was that lightning around his body? I haven't seen anything like it before, said Kurenai, looking at her temporary captain for an answer. It's called the lightning style armor. It is one of Kumo Vikure's most dangerous techniques. The user focuses lightning-based chakra all around their body to stimulate the synapses and nervous system, increasing one's speed and reaction time to impossible levels. It is a jutsu only known to the Raikage of Kumo. For Naruto to know something like that, he is either the next in line for the mantle of Raikage, or he has been personally trained by the Raikage. Either way, getting Naruto back in Konoha just got a whole lot harder. Kumo will never surrender someone who knows the secrets behind one of its most prized jutsu, said Kakashi as he placed his mask back on and began making his way back to Konoha, his temporary team following. Naruto was currently running towards the campsite his team set up. I can't believe them. They told me they would always do what was best for me, and they go and try to take me back to that hellhole of a village, thought Naruto as he continued through the forest. Just as he was about to cancel the jutsu, his chakra fluxed, and he ended up crashing through a couple of trees and finally into his campsite. Yujito, who had been sitting with her female teammate and Sensei, waiting for Naruto to return with dinner, was about to suggest they go check on him since he was taking a long time when said blonde suddenly crash-landed right in front of her. Damn, I still can't get that jutsu down, mumbled Naruto as he got up and dusted himself off. Naruto, what happened? Asked Darui. He had Naruto swear he would never use that technique until he had it mastered or if he was in a desperate situation, for him to use it. And with how close they were to the border, he could take a good guess as to what happened. I had an encounter with some Konoha Umbu, said Naruto, putting his team on alert. They were being led by Kakashi Hitaki, who was placed as the team captain and was there to ID me. The rest of the team was made up of Jounin I was close to before I left the village. Apparently, the Hokage thought that familiar faces would help to convince me to return. First was Anko Mitarashi. She is the Konoha's snake mistress. She specializes in tracking, capture, and interrogation. Might Guy, Konoha's green beast, he's a taijutsu master and specialist. As far as I know, he has almost no ninjutsu and no jinjutsu whatsoever. The last member was Kurinai Yuhi, Konoha's jinjutsu mistress. Like her title suggests, she's a jinjutsu specialist with barely jounin level taijutsu and little to no ninjutsu, said Naruto, surprising his team. If Konoha was willing to send four of their best after Naruto to bring him back to their village, they needed to be extra careful and keep their eyes open for anything at all that was out of place when they reached the village. Okay, we'll deal with this later. For now, let's eat and get some sleep. I'll take first watch, Naruto second, Yujito third, and Karui will take the last watch, said Darui, while Naruto unsealed the boar and began preparing it to cook. They ate in silence and went to sleep afterward with Darui, staying up for the first watch.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.